Hello, my dear friends. Hope you're having a wonderful day out there. I know I am. Coming at you from this incredible view in Krakow, Poland, Old Town. Amazing place. Having a wonderful time here. It's been a little while, and I assure you there's a very good reason for this abnormally long break in new shows. That is because I've been grinding the last couple weeks on the next 3 episodes, which is number 139, 140, and 141, turning them into a beast of a trilogy that can be best summed up as a very deep dive on what I'd argue is the biggest question any of us truth-seeking humans can be asking, which is, where are we? And if you know how we roll here, you know we're taking a very different angle on this question than the conventional schooling system has led us to believe. So I'm very excited to hear what you all think about these very alternative perspectives that we'll be discussing. Before we get started, a couple of quick notes. First off, these next 3 episodes will be very heavy on visual content, so make sure to pull them up on video. I am not sure if they will survive the YouTube algorithm, so I'm going to spread them out everywhere else I can, Nostr, Rumble, X, and maybe others, just to decentralize the distribution. And I'll make sure to include the links to those video versions for anyone that's using an audio player, so you can go find that. Also, shout out to Fasten, my personal favorite Bitcoin integrated podcast player, who just this week added video capability. So for all my fellow Fasten maximalists out there, you can now pull up the video version of this episode right inside the app. So that's super cool. Congrats to Oscar, Nick, and the team for shipping that one. Secondly, I did my best to format these next 3 episodes in a way that flows as smoothly as possible, but since we will be bringing in so many different supporting concepts during this journey, it's going to inevitably get a little bit messy. So it'll bounce around a little bit, and for that reason, I ask more than ever that for these shows, I highly encourage that you really sit down and give them your full attention to internalize these crazy ideas that my guests will be bringing to the table today. And I am very sure that you will be glad you did. And last but not least, I ask that you open your mind wider than it's ever been open before, because these next 3 episodes are going to challenge some very deeply held societal beliefs, which I can practically guarantee will trigger you in some way. I know that they did for me as I was learning about this, going through this rabbit hole. And it's going to destroy a lot of beliefs you have if you really take the time and listen to what these people have to say. I really do believe that. So it's going to be an incredible journey, and I think you're really going to get a lot out of it. So yeah, that's pretty much all I have to tee this crazy one up, folks. I hope you enjoy, learn something new, and consider sharing it with anyone you know who is also on this crazy truth-seeking awakening adventure. Here is part 1 of the Where Are We trilogy, featuring the man, the myth, legend, back for round 2 by popular demand, Scott Deedles.
It's part of a larger control mechanism, which is this thing of when we're continually shown things purposefully, it shapes our perception around the unconscious beliefs we have. And those things then become part of this shared reality where we just exist in ideas, and the existence of those unquestioned ideas allows other things. It's layers of a cake, right? Other things can be put on top of those things. There are some interesting theories around if part of the larger mission is to actually obscure cosmology of the reality we live in itself. And I think it's possible, for sure.
All right. Excellent. We are live, my friends. Thank you so much for coming back for another episode with this fantastic gentleman who is always good to reach out to for a spontaneous riff about some very weird topics that are new to the show. And today we have Scott Deedles, everyone. Thank you for coming to join me again, Scott. Appreciate you being here.
Ben, it's my pleasure to be back, man. Thanks for having me.
So as we were talking about a little before this, our Tartary episode was one of the most popular ones of the last few months, which is, I love to see that, because that was one of the first experiments of just throwing a completely different thing out there at people, a total curveball, and people loved it. So you are my new curveball plug, and we've got one for you today, my friends.
Do we ever?
If you were to tell me when I was first starting this podcast back in 2023 that I'm going to become fascinated with the moon, I wouldn't have expected that. That's a very, I thought I had that one figured out. We think we have these things figured out where you go to school, we learn all this stuff, and it's just so ingrained in us. Not so much after just learning about weird things. Did you see the post that I wrote about the experiment that I did? You read that, didn't you?
I did, and I was so excited to. Maybe we should get there. Yes, I'm
Yeah.
excited to talk about that.
Yeah, for sure. Well, why don't you give a super brief introduction for just who you are and what you do so people know who you are?
Yeah, I am a co-CEO at Block Rewards. We're a Bitcoin payroll software company based out of Canada, and we hosted my own Bitcoin podcast, The Block Reward. I've authored a few Bitcoin books. My pet one is a book called The Tao of Bitcoin.
All right. That's boring. Let's talk about the moon. So Scott, tell me, what is the official narrative about this big glowing blue ball in the sky that we see every night?
Yeah.
Let's start with what the official thing is that we're all taught. I know people have all heard this before. We'll start from that ground level people are used to, and then we can just start to expand from there and see where it goes.
You
What
know,
is
and I was thinking about this, and even how did we even get here to this place? Because it's true. This actually came up in the episode that we did previously. So I ended up I said something about the moon, and I think that the Tartaria thing is what these subjects for me have in common is with the buildings are the smoking gun around the Tartaria conspiracy theory. And they're physical things that are real, and we stare at them all the time. And what is interesting or unusual about them is that some of the, you have to perform a little bit of mental gymnastics to make the narrative that we've been told make sense. And the more you look at it, the less it makes sense. And that's kind of where the moon thing to me has the same sort of like interest. For me, it's another one of these things that I'll give another disclaimer. I'm not going to try to avoid making any claims because I can't prove any of this stuff. These are just things I've seen. There's a lot of really interesting content about this online and some really open-minded people debating different things. And for me, again, it's always about what do we observe with our own two eyes, and how do we reconcile the world around us as we experience it compared to what we get told in school. And so I think that this is another thing we talked about in the last episode, right? It's healthy to engage in question everything. And I said this to you just before we popped on here, right? But to me, part of this concept of like, what is the Matrix? Well, like the Matrix is like a collectively constructed mind prison that is an elaborate layer of ideas that become part of the nest when things about them stop being questioned. So like as soon as something becomes generally accepted, now it's just another brick in the wall. And so I think it's safe to say that there are some really weird things about the moon that are worth questioning. And maybe I'll just try to frame it like that. I can raise some of these things myself I've found unusual or noteworthy.
Yeah, and we all, well, you and me both have found just different angles that brought us into asking questions about this thing, which seems so random to ask questions about because, like you said, we've seen it every night of our lives.
Yeah.
There's millions and bazillions of times we see this thing and we never really wonder what's going on with that thing because
staring
we're
us
given
right in
a
the face.
story when we're born, basically, along with the sun and the earth. All these things, we're given this story from the science book that we keep just finding all these other things that this idea of science continues to be wrong about. And so our mind begins to open as we go down these rabbit holes of perhaps there is a real agenda here to just confuse people with all of these completely made up stories that get you stuck in a lower consciousness.
Yeah, it's Plato's cave. This is absolutely the story of Plato's cave. I think that's partly why the moon one in particular is so triggering for people. And I said this on the Tartaria episode. It starts to me, the entire basis for questioning anything about the moon is because the government and NASA is obviously lying about having been there. And so there are a lot of that's its own topic, and maybe we could talk about that for a little bit, because I think there are lots of plausible explanations for why the government would have lied about going to the moon that make total sense and don't necessarily have anything to do with what the moon is. But I think there are just so many pieces of the moon landing story that don't hold up. That's a bit of it's a beacon for digging in a little bit, and so what are those things? Firstly, it's the only technology ever that we've been able to been unable to replicate or improve over 50 or 60 years. In the last 50 years, and I think it was Neil Armstrong said this, they went to the moon with less computational power than is in the average person's cell phone today. Now just think about that for a second. So we're going to suggest that supercomputers used to be the size of a warehouse in the 60s. And I think they made a movie about the woman, the African-American woman who is credited with manually performing the calculations required to land the Lunar Lander. And they lost those calculations. And just like they lost all the telemetry data and all of they actually the official story is we'd love to go back to the moon, but we lost the technology and we're unable to rebuild it.
I'd go to the moon in a nanosecond. The problem is we don't have the technology to do that anymore. We used to, but we destroyed that technology, and it's a painful process to build it back again.
When you said that just now, did it sound stupid to you? Kind of.
Just stopping right there. If we knew nothing else, and there is lots of other stuff, but if we knew nothing else, anybody accepting that narrative, that's a tough one to bite off. To say, okay, well, that makes sense to me. It sounds like it's pretty hard to rebuild. You would think that with all the other advancements we've made in technology today, there would be just an immense benefit to having a permanent settlement on the moon now, where we could be learning all kinds of things. And if you would follow any other technology that did actually exist in the 60s and how it's progressed to now, like computers or anything, we would expect to see a similar progression. And there absolutely should be a thriving city on the moon by now if we went there 50 years ago. So so I think that's a problem. That's problematic. And I think it's also problematic that no other country went to the moon. So only the United States did it, and China and all of these powers that have risen since. The USSR was pouring into the space stuff. They bankrupted themselves trying to space race with Reagan, and they didn't muster it. They didn't even muster an attempt, which is just kind of weird. There's been no other kind of achievement like this. You think about nuclear weapons, if those exist, or any of the other great achievements. Another civilization or society always tries to copy them or accomplish that same feat. So those two things are just inconsistent with how things actually kind of work. And then I think about the existing footage of the landing itself and all of the different problems that a cursory examination of it really should pose to anyone who's sort of questioning anything. And some of them are really small things. And this is where there are people who have explanations as to why they think something so these things are debated or debunked, but the Lunar Lander didn't disturb any of the moon dust when it landed, none. There's pictures of the feet of this thing, and it's just touched down perfectly. And so, okay.
This is a 7,500-pound thruster. Look at its power. Look at its heat. Look at the light it creates. Look at the dust it kicks up. And yes, the Apollo astronauts claim that its lunar lander also kicked up dust, and the phony footage shows the same. The Apollo lunar lander had a bigger thruster at 10,000 pounds. Obviously, the 10,000 pound thruster failed to displace or scorch any of the lunar soil. In one case, you can see the nozzle is actually bent as it collapsed on the surface. The nozzle is literally buried in the ground, and still it did not affect the lunar soil. It's very clear a crane sat this lunar lander down on the soil. There was no rocket.
I mean, that lunar lander itself is made out of tinfoil and Scotch tape.
It's like construction paper, like taped together. It's crazy.
You know, and like the lunar buggy was something like $60 or $70 million in 1970, which would be like $1 billion today. And it literally looks like a dune buggy with a lawn chair strapped to it. Like, I'm not even joking, right? Like, this is what $1 billion bought you in 1970. And I mean, it certainly appears to be actually as big or maybe even bigger than the lunar lander that it arrived in. So maybe that's why it was so expensive, was because it had some pre-shrinking technology that enabled it to fit inside the lunar lander with the other astronauts.
This here is the official lunar lander. When I usually show this to people, they automatically think it's a joke. No, seriously, this is an official photograph of the Apollo lunar lander, and you have to be a damn idiot if you don't see how ridiculous this is. Fortunately, they took a close-up photograph as well. Curtain rods, aluminum foil, tar paper, Scotch tape, some useless abstract art sculptures that do nothing but look spacey, and some very poor construction. Look at the paneling. It's a disaster. If someone sheetrocked your basement like this, you'd demand your money back. But this is supposed to be an amazing spaceship constructed by the best engineers and scientists. It's absolute garbage, a shameful prop made by a high school drama club. Looking at the photographs side by side, it's unbelievable to me that they got away with this for so long. Are academics, scientists, and engineers so institutionalized that they can't see how absurd this is? It's incredibly stupid. According to McGowan, another curious fact that first on the moon made note of was that, according to Harold Loden, Apollo 11 mission controller, the skin on the crew cabin of the lunar module was very thin, and that was all done because of weight savings. Another talking head added that if you really took your finger and poked hard at it, you could poke right through the outer skin of the spacecraft. It was about the thickness of 2 layers of aluminum foil. Project manager Thomas Kelly concurred, noting that the aluminum alloy skin of the crew compartment was about 12 1/1000ths of an inch thick. That's equivalent to about 3 layers of Reynolds wrap that you would use in your kitchen. Astronaut Lavelle stated, "Whenever I saw a model of the lunar module, it had these rigid sides, and it really looked strong. Turns out that external portions of the lunar module are made up of mylar and cellophane, and it's put together with Scotch tape and staples. We'd had to have pads on the floor, because if you dropped a screwdriver, it would go right through the floor." And astronauts lived in this for days with multiple repressurizations, and merely dropping a screwdriver would kill them. As pointed out by David McGowan, the lunar lander actually failed the Grumman pressure test, which blew out a window, and no one seemed to care as no design changes were ever made. Come on. They want you to believe that this piece of junk could support life up to 3 days on the moon. What kind of life support would be necessary? What kind of air conditioning would be necessary in the harshest environment imaginable? The temperature on the moon allegedly varies from negative 387 Fahrenheit at night to 253 Fahrenheit during the day. The Apollo 17 astronauts supposedly re-entered the lunar lander on 3 occasions after even driving around in a dune buggy. What kind of dust-absorbing system did it have? Where were the batteries to give it power for 3 days? How much oxygen did it have to repressurize on each occasion and last for 3 days? How was there so much room in the lunar lander that NASA was able to attach a dune buggy on later missions? Did NASA have the foresight to leave a large trunk for a fold-up dune buggy with tires and large 1970 batteries? What about all of the bulky experiments? Where did they fit? The lunacy of the Lunar Lander should be enough to convince any thinking person that the moon landings were fake.
I mean, these are like the low-hanging fruit things that we're watching the lunar landing on TV when how are we purported to have been broadcasting information like that from the moon to the Earth, 240,000 miles? So none of these things had been proven. We'd never tested any of them. And then the first time we tried to shoot a couple of people into space and land on a moving object, on a different body, a physical object, we nailed it perfectly. And then they sort of planted a flag and played a little bit of golf and got back in, took some photos, which were in the newspaper the next day. So that's an interesting one. I don't know, that was early email, and then they just came home. It's really interesting, and like these little pieces of it. But you can find the interview, like the newscast of the astronauts. Like, so I think they landed and then they went into like confinement for 2 weeks where they were probably given shit piles of LSD and like MK Ultra to infinity. And they're finally making a public appearance. And you would think
they
these
look totally depressed and down, by the way.
Yeah.
This is one of the things that was crazy for me. When you look at the picture of these guys before it, and they're all chipper and excited, and they're looking forward to this, and then their first appearance back on the ground where they're going to make an interview, they're looking like down at their feet. They look ashamed.
Yeah.
The body language is palpable.
This was purported to be the greatest scientific achievement in human history. These guys literally should be elated and so excited to share their experience. And you nailed it. Like that it couldn't be further from the opposite. And beyond that, I think that like there's lots of recorded instances of those guys having inconsistent stories with each other. One guy says, "What do the stars look like from the moon?" And one guy says, "Oh, you can't see them at all." And the other guy says, "Oh, they're so brilliant and incredibly bright."
The rest of the sky was just black. You can't.
Why don't you see stars?
Because the sun, basically same as daylight here. You don't see stars, that they're there. But because of the sunlight, you don't see the stars.
And this is from Mark Cameron.
Whilst in space, have you ever looked away from Earth into the black void?
Yeah. Because you can see. You can see the stars.
Oh yeah.
And pretty much all the time you can see the stars.
Yeah. It's not a black void. I mean, it's black, but there's all kinds of little polka dots.
There's all the stars there, and the cool thing is about it, you can see it during the day.
Yeah, you can, and there's more than stars. You can see planets. You can see moons.
Okay, how is that possible? And there's lots of incidents like that. And those guys went on several times. Like there's many clips of Buzz Aldrin telling people we didn't go, we weren't there.
The one with the little girl, right? The little 8-year-old girl.
Yeah. I've seen 4 or 5.
Why has nobody been to the moon in such a long time?
That's not an 8-year-old's question. That's my question. I want to know, but I think I know. Because we didn't go there, and that's the way it happened. And if it didn't happen, it's nice to know why it didn't happen, so in the future, if we want to keep doing something, we need to know why something stopped in the past that we wanted to keep it going.
I don't want to be presumptuous here. I can call you Buzz. Okay.
That's a legal name. Passport, driver's license.
And I am Uncle Coney tonight.
Uncle Coney.
Let's talk about this, because this is fascinating. I remember very clearly, I think anybody who was alive at the time does. I remember my parents waking me up, and we went down and we watched you guys land on the moon.
No, you didn't.
What?
Because there wasn't any television. There wasn't anybody taking a picture. You watched animation. See, you associated what you saw with...
I have very hazy memories.
Yeah, I know.
Well, no, but what we saw was...
I was born in 1980, and I started to think about this later on. The Challenger shuttle explosion in 1986 was a masterclass in mass hypnosis. It was a really unusual thing. I grew up in Canada, and there was a Canadian on the Challenger, and it was the only time ever that I can remember. They got all the kids from my school, and we all sat in the gymnasium watching the Challenger launch live on television. And I think it was like that in every school, everywhere. There was some sort of coordinated effort to get as many eyes on this thing as possible. And they essentially publicly executed space travel, because after the Challenger shuttle explosion, they had this popular consensus that space travel was maybe a lot more dangerous than people thought. And maybe we shouldn't be trying to go back to the moon for a while. And then after that, like every elected president, Clinton, the Bushes, Obama, they all say, we're going to go back to the moon. And then it never happens. Yeah. So you're pulling this up. I mean, there is what appears to be a pretty compelling argument that none of the people who are said to have died on the Challenger are actually dead. A lot of them are still alive, actually living with their exact names, which is completely insane. And I've seen some of these people, videos of them, the Michael J. Smith one. I've seen videos of Michael J. Smith being approached by random kind of people curious about this. And he's like, oh no, that's another Michael J. Smith who,
looks exactly the same.
Totally. I mean, they all do, right? It's because
what is it, like guy, 2 or 3 of them are like, oh, that's my twin brother or twin sister. They just say that they made up that they have a twin.
I mean, and Dick Scobie is a very unusual looking guy. Like, he's got a very unique look about him. So it's not like there are people who look like that guy growing on trees.
1986, the world watched as NASA's Challenger space shuttle exploded shortly after liftoff. The world mourned the loss of the 7 astronauts who were on board. However, 20 years later, investigators would discover that the 7 crew members never actually boarded the shuttle that fateful day. Now I know what you're thinking. You're ready to call bullshit on this one, but let me stop you right here. The evidence that you are about to see will absolutely blow your mind. Sure, you've probably heard a dozen media outlets calling this a cooked-up conspiracy theory, but nothing could be further from the truth. Many people remember watching the explosion happen live on television, I myself being one of them. There is no doubt in my mind that the explosion was very real. In this video, we will examine footage from various sources that not only prove that 5 of the 7 Challenger crew members are alive and well today, but will also shed light on the possible reasons why they were not on board. 3 of the 5 astronauts, Judy Resnick, Richard Scobie, and Michael J. Smith. These 3 crew members were not only found to be alive, but they were still using their original names. You may be wondering, why wouldn't they change their names? And the answer is relatively simple. Their names were not too well known, and in 1986, living under the radar was much easier prior to the internet age. Is it possible that these 3 astronauts could have living doppelgangers that just so happen to have the same names? Not likely, and here's why. Although Michael J. Smith is a common name, the names of the other 2 astronauts, Judy Resnick and Richard Scobie, are exceptionally uncommon. For example, there are only 6 women currently living in the United States with the name Judy or Judith Resnick, and there are only 16 men named Richard, Rick, Rich, or Dick Scobie. What are the chances that all 3 of these astronauts would have living doppelgangers with the same names? I'll let you ponder on these odds for a moment. The other 2 astronauts, Ronald McNair and Ellison Onizuka, both supposedly have living twin brothers named Carl McNair and Claude Onizuka. However, No birth records could be found for either one of them. What's even more interesting is this. Let's take a look at this footage from then-President Ronald Reagan's memorial service for the Challenger crew. Here we can see the parents and siblings of Ellison Onizuka. But where is his living twin brother Claude? And here we can see the family of Ronald McNair. But his living twin brother Carl is nowhere to be seen. The reason Carl and Claude were not in attendance for their deceased brother's memorial is the same reason why there are no birth records for either of them. They do not exist. An investigator tracked down Challenger pilot Michael J. Smith and conducted a field interview, which he later posted on social media.
Is Challenger pilot Michael J. Smith alive and well? Take a look at the footage and let me know what you think.
Hey there. Hey, sorry to bother you. I was pulling out and I saw you. I just came by to... Are you Michael Smith?
Yeah.
Professor at university?
Retired.
Retired?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I just stopped by because there's this room. Are you aware of that there's a rumor on the internet?
It's not me.
That people are saying...
Yeah, it's not me, obviously. I mean, anybody that looks at my background, looks where I was born, it's not me. I mean, it's interesting that the Michael J. Smith that was the astronaut looks something like me when we were younger, but really not if you really look at facial recognition.
You've never been a pilot, never been in the military?
Nothing like that.
Huh.
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's all.
And I don't respond to the emails I get. I get probably an email, maybe 2 a month.
Really?
Yeah, and I got one guy that's been really hounding me, and I turned it over to the FBI.
Really?
You know, yeah, I mean, it's bullshit.
Okay.
You know, another crazy theory.
Okay.
But that's, you know, not me. I'm glad I wasn't him, but he was quite a guy.
Yeah.
You know, but if you look at my career, you look at my CV that's online, all the stuff I've published, all that I've done, it's not even close to what that guy was.
Okay. Yeah, you just sure look alike. It's the same name.
I know the facial thing, but that's what we looked like, what, 40 years ago?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
Voice analysis of the living Judy Resnick compared to the Challenger astronaut Judy Resnick confirms that they are indeed the same person.
I am hoping that the affliction that Steve Hawley had from the 41D mission specialist of the delays hasn't rubbed off on me.
For a very long arm, which is as long as the cargo bay, it's 50 feet long.
The image lets you see all of the current contemporary issues. All courts shall be open, property remedied by due course of law. You can find these. The equal justice under law becomes that we thought courts were all along. It says equal justice under law.
Hey, Judy? How you doing? I'm from the press. I just had a quick question, if you don't mind.
What press?
I'm from a radio station in San Bernardino. I know there's a conspiracy about the space shuttle. No, I want to be polite. Friendly. Just a question. So there's a lot of rumors about you being on that space shuttle. Obviously, you know, if you want to comment, we would really appreciate it.
There are many possible reasons why the crew did not board the Challenger that day. One theory is that the Challenger's final mission was deceptively unmanned due to limited funding and to maintain NASA's position as the world leader in space exploration. Clues uncovered in a documentary produced by National Geographic on the Challenger disaster seem to support this theory. Now let me ask you this. If you were offered $4.7 million to pretend that your loved one was deceased, would you do it? Of course you would. I think you get the gist of what I'm saying here.
Yeah. So Challenger, I consider kind of like Challenger, 9/11. These are events, the handful of moments that most North American people who were alive at that time kind of remember what they were doing that day. And that's the mark of a really massively effective PSYOP to me.
Yeah.
So much so, again, that like people, not only they don't even question it, but they get actually agitated when people start to question it.
And there's this strong emotional investment that's just baked into people. And like you said, it makes it that much more powerful because there's then a layer where it's not that they're not interested in you, it's that they hate you for questioning this thing.
Yeah.
Because how dare you question this tragic event where people died?
Yeah.
And when you give them evidence that shows that actually didn't happen the way that you were told, the Matrix agents fight back.
Yeah, totally. Agent Smith effect. Yeah, so I mean, yeah, I think it's complicated, right? Like it was an achievement. That kind of "We Choose to Go to the Moon" speech by Kennedy is like a really iconic moment in North American, as a Canadian. I'll adopt this and say we watch these moments too and almost live vicariously through the American viewpoint. And people were invested in this thing. It was a us versus them narrative, like watching Rocky IV, and Rocky went to Russia and trained. And this is like, we grew up on Cold War propaganda, and like Red Dawn. So I can only imagine what it was like for people to have won the space race. I completely get the personal investment in this thing. My parents have told me the story, and I know this is true for a lot of people who went out and bought their first color TV so that they could watch the moon landing in color, even though the actual moon landing footage was black and white. But yeah, so I get why people get triggered about it. And it's I was saying this in the last episode we did, where you can see why, because it also means coming to grips with the scope of the scale of a lie that the government would be willing to perpetrate. And I think that's what's really the underlying thing is, forget about any other things about the moon that are quirky and weird. The notion that the moon landing is actually a lie is just a lot for people to bite off. And I think that's really the underlying thing why so many really smart people still want to debate about whether or not we've been there, when all of the footage is completely ridiculous. And there are just so many Swiss cheese holes in the story of why we haven't been back. And yeah.
And I'll definitely throw some links in the show notes for people that want to go dig more into that, because it definitely deserves its own dig. It's tough to go through every single line item of the inconsistencies. The one that I would throw out is the footprints on the moon were not matching the actual shoes that they had.
Yeah, they're smooth. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And the video of the Lunar Lander leaving the moon, there's someone taking a video of it. Where'd they go? There's supposedly a cameraman left behind to take a video of it flying away.
What they said was they were remotely operating that camera from Earth, which is totally insane.
Right, following it the whole way. Yeah. Perfectly with no lag.
NASA claims that it used a remote control to operate the camera on the moon buggy left behind, and then beamed that video footage back to Earth 234,000 miles away. We didn't even have decent television remote controls in 1972. But NASA could not only operate the camera from 234,000 miles, NASA could also pan up and follow the lunar ascent stage and zoom out all in real time without delay. Look again, the camera zooms out and pans up in real time, and this remote control was supposedly 234,000 miles away. That, ladies and gentlemen, is impossible. One other thing, notice that there is no thrust from the nozzle. Yes, there should have been a huge flame and obvious light source from the nozzle.
Why don't we watch this thing launch?
Aye, proceed at 3, 2, 1, ignition. Right away, Houston.
Confetti! Why would confetti come out of a little shuttle? And how is this combusting in the empty void of space? And the cameraman even got left behind. How incredible. How smart these people are on the Apollo 17 mission.
Is combustion possible in an empty vacuum? Why don't we first test it out with gunpowder mimicking Earth's atmosphere? The high-powered laser is what caused it to combust. Clearly the gunpowder's going off. Lots of fire, lots of smoke. It's oxygenating. So why don't we try it with an empty vacuum? See if this high-powered laser does the same thing. So if we mimic the vacuum of space in a little container, it looks like a high-powered laser can't even burn that gunpowder. Absolutely nothing is happening to it. What about rocket fuel? This is rocket fuel in Earth's atmosphere. Makes sense. Burns pretty well. Even puts on a little show for us. But then, of course, if we put the rocket fuel in an empty vacuum, nothing happens at all. So what's up with NASA saying that, oh, we have this special rocket fuel that can combust itself and create all sorts of thrust in the empty vacuum of space? Does that make any sense to you? Especially considering the fact that every single video of a rocket in space is CGI. Oh yeah. But anywho, why don't we test thrust in a vacuum? Since apparently a rocket can create thrust in an empty vacuum. So this fan is going to push this feather in Earth's atmosphere. Obviously, the fan is going to push the feather, right? Because there's particles in the atmosphere. It's creating thrust. But if we mimic the atmosphere of Mars, which is primarily CO2, we get absolutely no movement whatsoever. Because you can't just create thrust in a vacuum. It has to be pushing off of something else in order to move forward. That's simple science. Did you know that it is completely impossible for sound to travel through a vacuum? That's right. This guy proved this with an experiment that's been done since 1705, where he sucks all the air out of this little glass jar and bangs a bell. No one can hear it. So what's going on with the Apollo 16 missions? Listen closely. Huh. What about this? What? Let's listen again. What? So how can we hear him banging on that object and shutting his cooler when the moon is essentially an empty void? There is virtually nothing on the moon. The atmosphere is almost non-existent. So sound needs a physical medium to propagate through. Let's say I'm speaking to you, my voice is vibrating the air particles around me, and it is creating a wave-like structure with the air particles itself, and that's how sound can travel.
And there's a lot of they just didn't get things right because they didn't know, right? So the Earth is meant to be 4 times the size of the moon. So if you were looking at the Earth from the surface of the moon, then it should be 4 times the size that the moon is when we stare at it from Earth. But if you see these photographs of the Earth from the surface of the moon, the Earth appears to be the size that we see the moon is, right? And there's no stars visible because obviously there's some effect that has to do with how the Earth's atmosphere works that makes incredibly brilliant stars visible to us, but once you're outside of it, they're invisible.
Several other wire fells that I've seen from NASA Cinema. Maybe you remember this one from NASA Cinema, where you can see the wires unnaturally lifting the back of the astronaut's shirt, just like Buster Keaton.
And a second wire bulges at his bum when he flies. But
yeah, I'm sure that's just perfectly normal space bum bulging that just seems to match wires and harnesses. How about this one, where the astronaut on the right in the USMC shirt actually grabs the other astronaut's wire. When he grabs this invisible object, it pulls the astronaut's shirt in a very strange way. That really looks like Buster Keaton, doesn't it? I also love this one, where the astronaut is hanging upside down, and the other astronaut on the right side pushes a button or something on the wall, which causes one of the wires attached to the shirt of the astronaut on the left to release. I guess he got tangled up when they were playing acrobats. PBS actually removed this clip off of their website, and so I couldn't share the original where you can hear the mechanism, but I'm sure that's perfectly coincidental. The astronaut behind him even reaches up at the same spot to seemingly detach the shirt from the wire. Of course, you can't forget this one where it looks like the astronaut flying in the back is wearing some sort of harness. I guess that's just an everyday astronaut harness that they like to attach to their butts for some made-up science reason. This astronaut seems to twist funny, like the wire is malfunctioning, and then she starts to fall before NASA cuts away. Buster Keaton comes to mind when watching that strange twisting. This is a great one where you can actually see the reflection of the wire. The reflection of the wire matches perfectly with the astronaut's movement, and it matches the bulge on his shirt. That's a classic Buster Keaton fail. This one is also hilarious as the actor from NASA accidentally gets the microphone wire tangled with her harness wire. Notice how the microphone wire is caught on something invisible, and then she has to use her other arm in a strange way to detach the microphone wire from the invisible object behind her. Is there any other evidence that NASA uses wires to fake space? How about this clip from an old video of mine? This company, called ZFX, which specializes in wires, stages, green screens, and performance flying. It actually looks like a pretty fun job. But you should go and check out their client list, and look who's there.
So,
for me,
like I said, it's a long list of different stuff. That's probably its own thing.
The thing that pushed me over the edge, I feel like this was cooking in the back of my mind for a long time, that it just didn't really add up. It doesn't make sense, but I credit Candace Owens. She had Bart Sibrel on, I think is the guy's name, who is the guy who went up to Neil Armstrong and knew that he was a very devout Christian man and said, "Hello, will you put your hand on this Bible and tell me that you walked on the moon?" And he didn't just say no, he punched him in the face. That was the story that he shared, is that he actually got violent with him for asking that. And there's all these examples where they just will not give that convincing story.
Hey, Bart with ABC Digital.
We need to get back to that signing.
One quick question. All right. I was given a classified tape showing part of the Apollo mission being falsified, of lunar orbit being falsified.
Being falsified?
Correct. We got an unedited tape from a source at the Johnson Space Center.
Yes. Totally nonsense.
We wanted to give you the opportunity to swear in the Bible that you orbited the moon during Apollo 15.
Okay, thank you very much.
Just one last question. If you orbited the moon, why do you have a problem swearing to God that you did so?
Sir, I don't, but I don't feel like I have to do that because data speaks for itself.
Well, we have proof that the mission was falsified.
No, you don't have to.
Sir, well, we do.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Thank you here. Thank you.
All righty. Howdy, Bart Sibrel, ABC Digital. I was given a classified tape from Apollo 11 showing them faking the photography of lunar orbit.
Why don't you quote me and say it's bullshit?
Well, would you mind swearing on the Bible that you orbited the moon?
Come on.
If you really orbited the moon, why would you have a problem swearing to God that you did so?
Mr. Anderson, can I take a picture with you real quick, sir? Oh, we are. No more, we're through. Okay, thank you. Sorry.
I've got on the tape Neil Armstrong rigging part of the photography where it puts
that'll tell you how screwed up. Thank you, Mr. Anderson.
Well, if you really walked on the moon, why do you have a problem? I mean, orbited the moon, why do you have a problem swearing to God that you did so?
Would you please just stay back?
Howdy, Buzz.
Who's that?
How's it going? Remember me?
What's your name?
Bart Sibrel.
Would you give your name to my assistant?
Yeah, I got one for you, one for your lawyer to sue me.
That's right.
I hope you do. I'd love to go to court and show the window shot.
I know you'd like to get a lot of attention, wouldn't you?
Well, you're the one getting money for something you didn't do. You're getting a lecture for walking on the moon when you didn't. Well, that's called being a thief.
Why don't you just
That's called being a thief. Do you think you can get to heaven without repenting? Why don't you swear on the Bible that you walked on the moon?
Please?
Why don't you swear on the Bible that you walked on the moon?
I'm not trying to get in the middle of anything.
Tell him to get out of here.
This is a hotel.
We'll call the police.
We pay.
Come on in here, we'll call the police.
Solicit on
You like that?
Why don't you swear on the Bible that you walked on the moon?
It doesn't, sir, I don't have nothing to do with this, but
Okay.
you cannot solicit on this property.
We just paid to rent out the penthouse to shoot up there. So
You can't solicit like this on this property.
keep shooting.
All right, well, then I'd go through my measures.
You got to keep shooting, man. Okay, well, you can put it on your shoulder. Don't be shy.
Just come with me, Buzz.
You really like attention, don't you?
You're the one who said you walked on the moon when you didn't. Calling the kettle black, if I ever thought of it. Saying I misrepresented myself.
Away from me.
You're a coward and a liar and a thief.
So this will be all right.
Mr. Armstrong, Bart Sibrel, ABC Digital. Wanted to give you the opportunity to swear on the Bible that you walked on the moon. Will you put your left hand on the Bible and swear to God that you walked on the moon?
Gentlemen.
Mr. Sibrel.
Yes? If you really walked on the moon, why would you not do that? So why don't you just put the into the record in the argument and put your hand on the Bible, swear to God you walked on the moon.
Mr. Sibrel, knowing you, that's probably a fake Bible.
Really? Well, no, it's a real Bible. You have the opportunity to have $5,000.
The meeting is not open.
Well, you have $5,000 cash. You can give it to charity if you swear on the Bible that you walked on the moon.
Please
I have
give
the
it to
tape.
charity. It'd be fine.
Why don't you swear to? Why not? Why won't you do it? So why don't you put your hand on the Bible and swear to God that you walked on the moon?
Mr. Sibrel has made a fool of himself in front of the world. Mr. Sibrel, you do not deserve answers.
So yeah, I'm convinced that it was definitely just a tax extortion hoax. They got so much money out of that. And I mean, do you think it was basically just filmed in a studio with Stanley Kubrick? Because I know that's one of the main narratives.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we could do an episode on Kubrick too, because he's an interesting person. And the suggestion I've seen is that in exchange for doing the moon landing, he was given a liberty to make the movies he wanted to make. And that all culminated with him making the movie he really wanted to make, which was Eyes Wide Shut. And when he screened the unedited version of it, he was dead like 3 days later.
And I'm assuming that's a version we haven't seen, right?
Yeah. So there was apparently 30 minutes of Eyes Wide Shut. So Kubrick was like the only person in Hollywood that had some kind of embedded in his contract that he was the last. He had the last say on every cut of each one of his films, and that was the thing that he got in exchange. And obviously I think there's a very deep connection between like Hollywood and NASA. I strongly caution people to consume anything that comes out of Hollywood with caution. And so the story goes that he'd been working on Eyes Wide Shut and no one had seen it. And then he showed the studio executives the version of it that he was planning to release. And I don't know if it was 3 or 4 days later, he was dead. And the version that was released was about 30 minutes shorter. And what they say was in the part that was gone was that there are some things. One thing I've read is that there was a child sacrifice piece that happened in the orgy scene. Yeah.
Too much truth there for the
too much truth.
Big guys up top.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I just saw that movie the first time a couple of years ago, and I definitely recommend people watch it because I feel like it still is even the neutered version kind of gives you a view of the weirdness going on behind the scenes there.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, so like, is this thing just about tax extortion? I mean, maybe. Could it be just a political thing? That's, I think, a completely reasonable explanation. So what would be the best way to force the Soviet Union to spend themselves into bankruptcy is, really effectively convince them and the rest of the world that you had accomplished this thing that they really needed to do in this international penis measuring contest. That holds water, and it could be that. But personally, I don't think that's what it is. And I do think it's part of a larger control mechanism, which is this thing of when we're continually shown things purposefully, it shapes our perception around the unconscious beliefs we have. And those things then become part of this shared reality where we just exist in ideas, and the existence of those unquestioned ideas allows other things. It's layers of a cake, right? Other things can be put on top of those things. So if you're not questioning whether or not we went to the moon, then you're certainly not questioning why we need to give NASA $70 million a day so that they might be able to build a city up there, whether they're trying to build a city up there or not. It's like, who knows what they're trying to do? Maybe they're building another large hadron collider underneath Tennessee, and they need that money to, who knows, right? I think, but it could be more than that. And there are some interesting theories around if part of the larger mission is to actually obscure cosmology of the reality we live in itself. And I think it's possible, for sure.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that knowledge is power, and the powers that be know this, and the more that they can keep people just confused and feeling like a random accident, the better. And this whole, all these things that we're told about the universe and the solar system and the heliocentric model has that theme of trying to get people to think that you're just a random accident. And
yeah,
that's a powerful thing.
I'm not a church-going person myself, but I do think that there's what appears to be sort of a concerted effort to make science the main religion, right? And that is in itself something that puts human beings at the top of the intellectual food chain. We are the creators, we are the gods. And when everything actually around us just screams of intelligent design.
Who invented the human skeleton was truly a genius. Every movement of the human body is a marvel that human science struggles to replicate. Such a precise structure, could it be the product of evolution or a masterfully crafted design? The seamless coordination between joints and muscles allows the body to perform various movements without causing itself harm. Each bend and glide is like a flawless mechanical design. The hip joint, being a ball and socket joint, enables 360-degree rotation, granting both flexibility and stability during movement. The knee joint, on the other hand, functions as a hinge joint, allowing flexion and extension on a single plane. In the operation of joints, cartilage and synovial fluid play essential roles. Cartilage acts as a cushion, effectively protecting the bones and reducing wear. Synovial fluid provides lubrication, reducing friction, and allowing smoother, more fluid motion.
Everything, and that includes the stars and all of that, but everything on Earth. And even this is where myself, I was really into space sci-fi. Like I was a Star Wars fanatic when I was a kid. And so I completely get fantasy about space travel and going to other planets. And when there was there was a crowdsourcing company that was in Scandinavia that was trying to land people on Mars by 2025. This is in 2016. And this is 10 years ago. I was joking to my parents about trying to sign up and apply to be one of these first Martians. And my parents are losing it. They're like, are you kidding me? You're never coming back. And they're like, yeah, of course I want to be one of the first people on Mars. But man, even that idea is the Earth is just so incredible. The notion that we would have to leave or need to leave is just stupid. It's abundant. Everything we have is here. There's no need to go anywhere. We live in paradise. And there's plenty enough of it for, obviously, maybe if there was 10 or 20 or 50 billion people, we're going to run into a problem. But I think that what we should be trying to do is really focus our efforts on maximizing the opportunity that we have on this place here, which is already really amazing. And yeah, so the space thing, I think, has a few things. You know, it's also, it keeps people distracted on a goal that has no like obligation to be delivered. And like, there's just no way to say like, oh yeah, we missed that, sorry. It's like this specter of possibility. So like Elon going to Mars is kind of the same thing. And I think Obama said we were going to put people on Mars by X date, whatever. You know, Mars, the moon, the same idea. You know, and then at the same time, they're talking about like, you know, we hope to be able to get out of the lower Earth orbit. And this is another one of those things. So if the moon is actually outside of lower orbit, which is what we're told, then we were able to get out of lower orbit, and somehow now we're not. So it's cool that Elon can land a rocket backwards. Sweet. You know, it goes a third as far as we could go 50 years ago. I mean, yeah.
I want to know why every single one of those rocket launches always follows this curved arc and just comes right back down. And they tell us that, oh, we have to like go this arc to fight the spin of the Earth or something. I don't know if that's actually happening. I think they're kind of just going up and coming back down. What do you think,
Yeah,
Scott?
looks a lot like the Disney logo.
Yeah.
Regard not them that have familiar spirits, neither seek after wizards to be defiled by them. I am the Lord your God.
We'll show 'em, won't we, boy? We sure will. Now, first of all, lad, we've got to get all these medieval ideas out of your head. Clear the way for new ideas. Knowledge of man's fabulous discoveries in the centuries ahead. Now, that'll be a great advantage, boy.
Advantage indeed. If the boy goes about saying the world is round, they'll take him for a lunatic.
The world is round? Yes, yes, that's right. And it also goes around. You mean it'll be round someday? No, it's round now. Man will discover this in centuries to come. And he will also find that the world is merely a tiny speck in the universe.
Universe? You're only confusing the boy. Before you're through, he'll be so mixed up, he'll be wearing his shoes on his head. Man has always learned from the past. After all, you can't learn history in reverse. It's confusing enough, for heaven's sakes.
All right. Oh, of all the idiotic guys, blow me to Bermuda! Where did he go?
To Bermuda, I suppose.
Where's that?
Oh, an island way off somewhere that hasn't been discovered yet.
Will he ever come back?
Who knows? Who knows anything?
Take a look at this video of the trajectory of a launched rocket. Think about the path that the rocket follows. Instead of moving in a straight line, the rocket following a curved trajectory. This isn't a mistake. You will see the exact same thing in every other video of a rocket launch. Even so, it doesn't seem to make sense. Rockets are supposed to go into space, right? So wouldn't it make more sense if they went straight up in a line, rather than following a parabolic path? They'd reach space much faster that way, it would seem. There must be a reason, because rocket scientists tend to be pretty smart, so why do they not go straight up? Hello and welcome to Question Spot. Today we will explore the answer of, why is a rocket trajectory curved after launch? So let's get started. Short answer, because they want to get into the orbit around the Earth using as little fuel as possible.
Wait a minute. Now, do you hear what their excuse is for orbiting the whole Earth before going to space? We all know that the fastest way from point A to point B is in a straight line. That's like saying when we get on an airplane, the airplane circles the airport before it takes off onto its destination. Or when I get in my truck in the morning, I circle the block before I actually get on the highway and go to work. Come on now, people. Do you even comprehend how ridiculous that sounds? Saving fuel. And I'll tell you what's even more ridiculous than that. You got these globetards that'll make these videos and put them on YouTube trying to explain that that's why the rockets curve on launch. Knowing good and well that they've never even seen a rocket in person or been beside a rocket or know anything about a rocket, but they'll go Google their information and then put out a little silly video like you see here, 15 minutes and 47 seconds long, trying to explain a lie that they've been lied to, and they have no clue what they're talking about. They're just giving you information that was handed down to them through a space agency. So anyways, I'm here to show you why rockets curve when they launch. Check it out.
So they send these rockets up, but they don't really go anywhere.
Yeah, if you watch the trajectory,
right.
It's never straight. It's never straight. It's never straight. Where are you going?
Now, did you know that all rockets are launched from Cape Canaveral, Florida? Now, what's beside Florida? The ocean. You know what's in the ocean beside Florida? The Bermuda Triangle. Now, why don't they launch rockets from Texas, Colorado, or Kentucky? Because there's no ocean there for them to fall back into. And that is why they launch from Cape Canaveral, so they can drop it right in the Bermuda Triangle. And nobody ever know, nobody ever see, because nobody goes there. Now, space shuttles, they do a little different, but it's still pretty simple how they pull it off. You ever notice once the shuttle gets up so high, its boosters fall down into what? The ocean, the Bermuda Triangle. And then the shuttle, which is not really a space shuttle at all, it's just an airplane, big goofy looking airplane made to look like a shuttle. And then when it comes back, nobody notices how it just looks like an airplane landing on a runway. Check out the wheels. See these little doors on these wheels? And this stuff is supposed to say stay sealed in a vacuum? Yeah, come on now, people. It's time to wake up.
Allow me to Bermuda!
To Bermuda, I suppose.
So, as you can see, the owl is wise. He's trying to teach the child the truth. But the wizard, which is a devil, is trying to lie to him. And then what's he say? Fly me to Bermuda, and takes off like a rocket into the sky and curves off, just like you see real rockets do. And the reason they do, because there is no outer space. There's a firmament. There's nowhere to go. So it's just a little fireworks show to trick you and make you believe all this stuff. None of you have ever seen a rocket. You might have stood there in Florida and watched one go up in the air, but you've never seen one in space. Only on TV did you see one in space, not in real life with your own eyes. Wake up, people. Stop believing this bull crap. Those rockets go straight into that Bermuda Triangle. That's why they make up all these myths and don't want you around there. And they say all these ships are wrecked in there and all these planes have fell in there. Only thing that's fell in there is their rockets and their bull crap.
Sorry to tell you. The only thing that's been to space is your imagination.
Allow me to Bermuda!
Where did he go? To Bermuda, I suppose.
Where's that?
Oh, an island way off somewhere that hasn't been discovered yet.
Now, remembering that that movie is from 1963, check this out. During the early 1960s, Bermuda played a crucial role in the United States lunar programs and other space flight missions. Cooper's Island, Bermuda. Cooper's Island is part of the chain which makes up Bermuda. It is located in St. George's Parish in the northeast of the territory. The island has been used by many United States government agencies. having been the property of the U.S. Army, U.S. Air Force, and U.S. Navy from 1942 during World War II to 1995. It also is home to a NASA space tracking station recently renovated in 2018. Now you'll notice in 2018, around 2018 is when they started this rocket stuff up again. Now let's take a look at how close the relationship is between NASA and Bermuda.
As an integral part of the National Aeronautics and Space Administration's manned spaceflight network, the Bermuda station played a vital role in the United States Apollo lunar program and other flight missions. The Combustion station was located on the southeastern tip of Bermuda, 600 miles in the Atlantic from the U.S. East Coast. Radar dishes and helical antennae were used to track anything from spacecraft to sparrows. Because of its location in relation to Cape Kennedy, Florida, the Bermuda station had a dual-purpose role for the manned spaceflight network. At the time of the launch, the primary mission of the station was to provide trajectory data to the computing facilities at the Goddard Space Flight Center. Computations based on data obtained during the final portion of powered flight were used to confirm the orbital go, no-go decision. Bermuda normally acquired the spacecraft at approximately 3 minutes after launch. Bermuda also played a role in shuttle launches.
On the right-hand side,
Dragon, SpaceX, trajectory nominal.
you can hear the call out. Trajectory is nominal.
Nominal trajectory.
And we've heard the call out Bermuda. That means Bermuda ground station has the signals from the second stage of the Dragon and Falcon 9.
Right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to today's ceremony at NASA's Bermuda Tracking Station. My name is Jeremy Eggers. I'm with NASA's Office of Communications. And without further ado, it's a great, great honor for me to introduce our U.S. Consul General here in Bermuda, Constance Dearman.
Thank you, Jeremy. Good morning, everyone. What a wonderful day to be able to share with you. I'd like to especially welcome Deputy Premier Robin. Thank you for being here. Sir John Swan, thank you for being here. Director Sam Shamimi, we're delighted that you're able to visit us from NASA headquarters.
Dr. Grace Shelton, Ms. Lori Garver, Deputy Administrator of NASA, Mr. Al Cundies, Deputy Associate Administrator, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning and thank you for being here on this day in the most beautiful part of Bermuda, the Cubas Island Nature Reserve. Today marks a combination of 2 years of negotiating between NASA and the Department of Airport Operations. However, the NASA and Bermuda government are certainly no strangers. During the 1960s, NASA developed a tracking station at Cubas Island to support its national space program.
Now, as you can see, Bermuda and NASA has been affiliates since the early 60s when they first started sending rockets up, because they planned us out from the beginning. As you can see right here, you see the Bermuda Triangle, and then you see the island of Bermuda. Now, 600 miles away, right over here, you have Cape Canaveral, Florida, where they do all the space launches from. Ain't that awful convenient? 600 miles away, and the only thing out in that ocean is a little island called Bermuda. Am I painting the picture clear enough for you now? You can go watch all the space launches you want to in Florida, but you can't see 600 miles away to where that rocket or shuttle is curving off to. NASA has been deceiving you with this trickery since the 1960s, people. It's time to wake up. They even show you in your little programs you watch. They show you the truth.
Blow me to Bermuda!
Where did he go? To Bermuda, I suppose.
Where's that?
Oh, an island way off somewhere that hasn't been discovered yet.
A group of social criminals, these people in the space program. Nassholes, I call them.
People love space, right? And so it's another one of these, like, I find it's a very triggering thing to even suggest. The curve thing as an example. And I've met many people who can recite all the different calculations of how we think the physics behind that works. It's very unusual that, of course, the Bermuda Triangle is exactly where if you were launching something in sort of a parabola off of the coast of Florida, and it was in fact landing, it would probably be landing exactly in that area. We see these rockets fly off and people are there cheering them on, and then they kind of like curve, and then a lot of them like appear to kind of like blow up. Yeah, it's a very, very odd. These things that we see one thing and we're told another thing, and this is like the buildings. We're forced to try to reconcile this apparent conflict between what our rational mind is observing and what we're told. So there's some weird things. There are some weird things about the moon. And this is kind of like where I got interested in. One, yes, whatever it is, the government's lying about the fact that they went there. And that's fine. But just through my own process, I started paying attention to this stuff. And I think a lot of people, even from what I found in talking to people about this, don't really think about the fact that we only ever see one side of the moon and how weird that is. And like a lot of people, truly, and I would say more than half of the people I casually talked about this have never really stopped to think about the fact that what appears to be the moon, just we only ever see one version of it. And the scientific explanation of this is this thing called tidal locking. It's like it just happens to be the case that the moon is, because of its whatever magnetic relationship with the Earth, or it's rotating at a speed that mimics the rotation of the Earth in such a way that it's basically like two people dancing and they're like spinning, and so they're just always staring each other in the eyes. I don't know if there's any. I don't think there are any other celestial bodies that exhibit that behavior. It's a very weird property. And like I said, we stare at the moon every night. We go out of our way to actually, there'll be a news story about, oh, it's going to be a supermoon tonight. It's going to be a blood moon. And like people pay attention to like the phases of the moon. They will go out and go out of their way to see a particular moon. So we are very much paying attention to this fact. And then at the same time, you have this like really weird thing where people would like actually just not know. Yeah, I never noticed that. Yeah, that's kind of weird. I mean, then there's
always
this,
a scientific story to explain all these interesting phenomenon.
Yeah,
which I've noticed too. So there's always something that, if something starts to make you think, oh, that's a little bit odd, there's this official narrative that comes out there, and it usually just doesn't really pass the common sense test, but people just hear it from an authority figure, so they just take it. And I can give my examples of that doing my little experiment at some point. If we could go there, whatever you want. I don't want to cut off your train of thought.
I'm almost there. You know, so the second, I think, thing that's one of these things is, observably, the moon and the sun are the same size. That's just using your own eyes. If you look at them, they're the same size. And the scientific explanation is that it is this incredible coincidence that the moon is 400 times smaller than the sun, and it happens to also be 400 times closer. And that's what creates this effect.
Exactly.
Exactly. And so, wow, that's just a really wild coincidence. And you just put that together with the thing about the tidal locking. So you just happen to have these two, they're just weird. It's like the Tartaria thing where there's multiple things about this. You know, you're having to stretch your imagination a little bit to accept the accepted narrative that the moon is some kind of, it's a piece of the Earth that broke off after a meteor and was spun into a sphere by the power of Earth's gravity. It's a solid rock. It has no atmosphere.
Spinning the exact right speed to just, you only ever see one face of it, no matter where on the Earth you are. That's crazy. For thousands of years.
Yeah. Yeah. And this gets into your experiment, because like, I think the third thing that is observable and doesn't really make sense to me, and this is just what it appears to me is that the moon creates its own light. The moon is a luminary, and what we're told is that the moon rock is reflecting the sun's light, and that's why it's lit up. But it really does look like, to me, that it's emitting its own light. And there's a few things about that moon bouncing the sun's light that I find difficult to accept. And one is this really easy to replicate test. You can do it in your garage with a basketball and a flashlight. It's like when you illuminate a ball with an external light source, their light is going to be uneven across the surface of that ball. And it will be brightest at the part that's closest, and it will be darker on the edges. And a full moon is fully illuminated. Like the light is consistent across. Everyone has seen a really brilliant full moon, and it's really bright. You know, like when I was like 20 years ago, I was backpacking through Egypt, and I got to go on this trek through the Sahara Desert. And there's a part of the Sahara Desert that's all white limestone, and we were there for a full moon, and the moonlight was so bright it was like daylight. You could read a book with from the light of the moon, and they can actually measure. Light is measurable, right? Lumens is a light measurement. And so remember that this thing is meant to be like 200,000 plus miles away.
I think it's like 240,000,
right.
I think is the official, yeah.
And so for this thing to be able to kick off enough light that you could read a book from it, it's just these are just things that are, I think, difficult to kind of accept. So, and then let's talk about this, because I had seen this elsewhere, and I love this when people replicate experiments, because now I can actually tell people personally that I know somebody who did this themselves, and I had seen this done, and the claim was that moonlight is actually cold, and that things that are sitting in direct moonlight at night will be cooler than things that are in the shade and not being hit by the direct light of the moon. And you went out and tried this.
I did, yeah. So I'll give a little bit of a background here for just how I even got into that, and so many other interesting things that I get pulled into. I just saw a bunch of weirdos on Rumble and do these super fringe video platforms where you can't get banned, or just doing this experiment and just getting an infrared thermometer and bringing two different objects out into the night during a full moon, and just noticing that when you measure the one that's in the moonlight and one that's in the shade, it could even be the same surface. Like, and then we can go into the different rebuttal points people have thrown at me in the last few days since I posted it. They'll say, "Oh, the source of the shade is blocking the escape of heat from the Earth," or something. This is. I can go on Nostra right now and find these things. They're saying, "Oh yeah, the shade source is creating something," but I specifically used a tree that was 30 feet away, so that's definitely not a chance. Let me start over there. I'll give people the full rundown here. So I went out to test this myself, this theory that moonlight is colder than shade during a full moon. I got these two metal plates. I walked up the hill where I was back home at my house, and luckily there was a beautiful clear sky during a full moon, which, this is a whole different tangent, but I've noticed from observation that there's might be more heavily spraying skies around full moon. That's maybe a reason. I don't know. There might be some interesting energy going on during that time that certain people don't want people to be absorbing. But anyways, beautiful clear night sky. Put two of them on the road. So one of them was completely in the shade, one was in the moonlight. Measured them both. Then I switched places, and so they were like, I was switching them around. I put them on different ground surfaces. I moved them all over the place. I did 6 different tests, and every single time, the one that was in the moonlight was a little bit colder. And let me pull up my blog post again to remember the actual difference. I will say this, it was a pretty small difference. The ones that I watched on those video pages were showing bigger differences of 5+ degrees difference. For me, it was usually 1 or 2 degrees. And so it was a very small difference. And this is the reason why I want people to go out and try this for themselves and really test it out themselves. Because my theory is that the videos I watched were more, there were warmer climates that people are doing it in. And yeah, so I just pulled it up. So from my 6 different tests that I did, the average difference, and this was over the course of a couple hours, I think, the average difference was 1.15 Fahrenheit. So it's not a huge difference. And people were saying, oh, that is within the realm of error of the device. It is certainly possible, but yet every single test I did, it was showing that it was colder in the moonlight. So I think that that's significant, the fact that it was the same overall result every time. And I want people to go try it themselves and see what happens. Figure out when a full moon is and go out there and just bring a little infrared thermometer, be the weirdo in your neighborhood. I was just waiting for someone to walk out of their house and just see me just measuring these weights on the streets in like midnight, middle of the night with the moon out. But to me, that was a really fun little don't trust, verify experiment where I got the result that these weirdos on the internet were talking about. And it certainly gets the questions rolling. And I think that's important for everyone to do. And I found it fascinating, and it just makes me want to ask more questions.
Yeah. And it's like we have all like ancient lore about moonlight, right? Like werewolves and this term lunatics, right? It's like we understand that the full moon makes people crazy, and the moon is
actually backed by stats, right? Isn't it?
Yeah.
The crime rates are higher during a full moon by a lot.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I mean, and like truly, so the moon does have a relationship with the tides and water, and people are mostly made of water. So it makes sense that there's something happening like at a physiological level, which again makes me wonder about what could be the reason for obscuring a broader understanding of what it is or how it works.
Why the Nikon P1000 was discontinued mysteriously?
Yeah.
You learned about that one?
Hey everyone, so I saw this post circulating and it piqued my interest. If you've been following for a while, you know that I have a highlight dedicated to all things not a space agency. NASA apparently signs this space agreement with Nikon, the people that manufacture cameras and lenses. They've been around for a really long time. This agreement was signed February 29th of this year. What's really interesting is that the very next day, Nikon discontinues their P1000 Coolpix model, which was the only mega zoom camera in the market. Their reasoning for the agreement that they signed is that they're going to outline how they will work together to develop a handheld camera that can operate in harsh lunar environments with this Artemis 3 thing that they're working on. So that's their excuse. So naturally, I and probably many of you want to look into this a little bit more, because one day later, this was taken off after an agreement was signed with NASA. So what was this camera capable of seeing? And there's tons of videos on YouTube, and the creators aren't actually saying what they're thinking, but many of them were able to get pretty decent quality images and video of the moon. People were able to now notice many discrepancies in the distances that we've been told, because you can see past the human eye's vanishing point. It suddenly became about perspective, distance, and just vanishing points at work. So oftentimes there was no curve to even go over in many of these videos captured. I mean, of course, you get to make your own informed decision on stuff like this. The P1000 was also able to zoom into celestial objects, stars, and reveal the true nature of them. Sony makes a cyber shot. Panasonic has a camera with a crazy zoom as well, but the most that those cameras can get to is 70 times. And what was significant about the Nikon P1000 is it got to 125 times. And, novices could use this and take video and keep the video going and just stream it and let people just use their eyes and come up with their own conclusions. I mean, there are videos where people couldn't find something that they should have been able to see up there, like flags and stuff. Maybe people would be more inclined to believe what this space agency put out there if they didn't openly admit that they use Photoshop. That Robert Simon guy, this is what his role is, to make imagery from Earth science's data. I turn data into pictures. That is what you are seeing whenever they post images of space, Photoshopped pictures. Even their P900 was able to get this image of the sun versus the image that we were told the sun looks like, but it's CGI provided by the space agency that we give billions of dollars to every year. My whole thing is, why alter the image to begin with? Don't you have the most insane technology and high-tech telescope zoom cameras? Why can't you just snap it and then show people what you captured? Why all the CGI? Okay, I take that back. Even their technology has always been just a little bit questionable to me. So what are your thoughts on this? Coincidence? Anyway, I've got a camera to purchase. You guys believe what you want. Bye.
If you believe they put a man on the moon, man on the moon. If you believe there's nothing up their sleeve, then nothing is cool. Moses went walking with the staff of wood. Newton got mean by the apple. Egypt was troubled by the horrible asp. Mr. Charles Darwin had the golden mask. Now, Andy, did you hear about this one? Tell me, are you locked in the pond? Hey, Andy, are you goofing on Elvis? Hey, baby, are you having fun? If you believe they put a man on the moon, man on the moon. If you believe there's nothing up their sleeve, and nothing is cool.
If it's actually 240,000 miles away, then how could people zoom in incredible detail with the camera that you could buy at Walmart? That's a tough one. That's a really tough one to explain.
When it's much smaller than Earth too.
Yeah.
And I want to quickly mention the sun too, because this is the official narrative for the sun is that it's 93 million miles away. However, there are people with this camera, the Nikon P1000, which is just a really powerful zoom camera, and a proper filter setup. They're literally zooming in, and you can see little speckles of detail on it. You can see it in perfect detail.
All right, here comes your Nikon P1000 sun test. Let's see what we can see at 93 million miles away. Man, y'all check out this raw power, dude. This thing is strong. You know what's weird? 93 million miles away, huh? This camera, man, this camera don't play them. Look at those sunspots. Now, I'm going to keep a real close eye on these sunspots because, you know, the sun's supposed to be rotating as they say, I believe. Am I right? And those sunspots are always in the same spot, allegedly, is what I've been told. So we're going to look into it more and see what's going on with that. And see, I can zoom all the way in on the sunspots, but as you can see, they get a little bit, you know, blurry.
93 million miles away, that doesn't make sense. You can't see that far away. Think about how far that is, people.
Yeah, this is true of the moon. In my own life, I've seen different times where it certainly appears that there are clouds behind the moon, like the moon is among the clouds. And I think everybody's seen, if you really think about it.
This was a huge one for me, actually, because this is one that I can't remember where I heard it mentioned or if I just spontaneously figured this out by myself. But I think most people can visualize this. So think back to the time, dear listeners, the last time there was a cloudy evening during a full moon, and you look up in the sky and you see the moon up there, and it's shining through the clouds, and you see that ring of light around the moon, which is, I don't know, maybe 10 times the diameter of the moon outward or something. And outside of that is dark. So that should get you thinking. We know that the clouds are, I don't know, maximum of 1 to 3 miles high. Not sure what the highest clouds are. They're not much further than that. If the moon is 250,000 miles away, it would not be illuminating this very small ring. The light has a lot of space to come and spread out. It would illuminate all the clouds evenly.
Yeah.
That got me thinking. That's weird. That tells me that the moon is actually really much closer to us than we're told. Does it not?
Good evening, everyone. What I'm going to be showing you this evening is the moon through a thermal filter. Now, through a thermal filter, whatever is in front of the light will be green. Whatever is behind the light will be like a pinkish, reddish color. Okay, and the light itself will have a pinkish, reddish color around it because that's the light source, and that's just the way the thermal vision works. If you guys don't understand thermal, then you're probably not going to understand the video. But anyways, check this out. The moon is closer than what they tell us. Check this out. Look at the clouds right underneath the moon. See how they're all lit up? But look over here at these clouds. Look over here at these clouds. They're dark. If the moon were way out in outer space like they tell us, well, it would light up all these clouds all around. But it doesn't do that. And you know that with your common sense and your eye. You see that it only lights up the clouds that are right underneath it, just like this flashlight. Check this out. When I hold the flashlight up high, away from the floor, guess what? Well, it lights up the whole floor, just like the moon should do to all the clouds if it were in outer space. But watch what happens when I move the light source close to the floor. It only lights up the area of the floor right underneath it, just like you've seen with the clouds and the moon. They are lying to you people. That moon is close, very close. Now you can come up with all that NASA bullcrap education and indoctrination all you want to, but I just showed you with your own eyes. You have inner wisdom, you have common sense, use it.
I mean, these are really weird things that are hard to explain. And I think another one that's like this is if the moon's a rock that's 240,000 miles away, why does it change color? Like this has happened only for me a few times in life, but I've seen it be bright red. And I've never really noticed the sun's color changing in that way. If it's the sun's light that's lighting up the moon, then that's just I would love to, hit me up with the explanation of how that works.
So a lunar eclipse is apparently caused by the Earth moving in between the sun and the moon, and the Earth casting its shadow on the moon causes the moon to then turn red. Can someone please explain to me how this makes any sense whatsoever? If the sun is able to shine its light on the moon, but not shine its light on anything else in the sky, or anything else on Earth, in the middle of the night, we can see a blood moon, but we don't see any sunlight reaching the moon. So a lunar eclipse doesn't even make any sense in the mainstream terms. And what doesn't even make any sense at all is, can you please tell me how this model of our solar system is causing this? A perfect 15 degree per hour rotation of the ether overhead, moving in 5, 6, 7 different directions at once. But we get this.
I just have a hard time with this stuff in general. And there are oral traditions of people all over the world that talk of a time before the moon, which is also a really interesting thing. And how long has it been there is an interesting thing to wonder about.
So what do you think the moon actually is then? If we're suspicious, I'm suspicious about it being a rock that you can even land on. I don't think that it's a rock anymore. I am very convinced now from my own experiment and just lots of research. And like you said, just looking at this thing, how bright it is and how the phases of the moon actually change. Mm-hmm. I am fully convinced it's not reflecting sunlight. It's making its own light. Mm-hmm. So what the heck is this thing? What's it made of? What's the deal?
Good question. I will say, for anyone who's like, I don't believe that it's an alien space station. I don't think it's a hollow. There's some really out there ideas. I've seen a video of one of the he did that episode with Bull about remote viewing, and there was like a remote viewer from the CIA who said he viewed the dark side of the moon and there was like space bears and naked women on it. I don't think it's that. One theory that I think is really interesting is the idea that the moon is made of plasma, this plasma moon theory. And so plasma is kind of like the fourth state of matter and is this something in a plasma state is like a collection of charged particles that exhibit a behavior. It creates a structure in a way that's just different than if you think about like water, ice, and vapor. And so this plasma idea could explain some of the more quirky things about that we're talking about, right? And so one of them is the daylight transparency of the moon. So partial moons.
We forgot to mention that. The fact that there are many cases recorded of people seeing stars through the moon.
Hi, Blue Fox here. On September 27, 2015, I took pictures of the eclipse of the moon. I set up my 5-inch telescope using a 17mm eyepiece and took these snapshots. You will notice in the pictures, stars show through the dark portions of the moon. And as I go through them, I'll blow them up a little larger so you can see these stars. I'll point to one. There's a blue star here, a white star. There's another star right here that shows up quite good. And that's that picture. Move on to the next one. You can actually see the stars here. So we'll zoom in and we'll see a red star with a white star right in here. And then there's 3 stars, a white star, a blue star, and another blue star.
This is why I want to get a really good telescope and just live in this place in the mountains where I can just stare at the moon every night and figure this shit out.
Yeah, and this is another thing. It's just, I think, does it make sense that if the Earth, to your point about the clouds, like if the moon is outside of the atmosphere and way farther away, then why would it be able to be transparent in the color that should be in front of it? Why would the invisible part of the moon be the color of the sky? So that's the plasma moon theory, and I'm not an expert on it, but it has a way to tackle that, and also could be a way to explain why it changes in brightness and in color. There's a scientist in the I'm going to say in the 50s who had this idea, and there are a lot of clips about this, him talking about the idea that moon is plasma.
Well, now, one thing, you have a theory about the moon, and we expect to be able to get observable facts about the moon fairly soon. What is your theory?
Well, it is by now rather more than a theory. 10 or 11 years ago, I stated to various scientists that the moon is not a piece of rock, but it is a plasma phenomenon, cosmic plasma, and that this fact will eventually be confirmed. I made certain predictions which were already confirmed in 1958, and the situation now is coming close to a complete confirmation.
What will be the result if you're proved to be correct in your theories?
The result will be profound and decisive, because it will give proof that a complete reinvestigation of the laws of nature is necessary. Because if the moon is a plasma, no man will ever land on it. The soft landing attempts will all fail. That means that the mass of the moon is less, far less, than is currently assumed. It's in a different state of energy, and it has far less mass. That means there is no more explanation for the tides. If the moon, for example, had only 1,000th part of its current mass, then the tides would only be 2 inches high, and the conventional theories instead of sometimes 14 feet. And that means that if it is proved that the moon is a plasma, then all gravitational theories are out, and a new concept of the cosmos and of its laws has to be evolved.
But the Americans and Russians are thinking of landing men on it.
Well, that will never happen, not on the moon.
In this model, the moon is probably more like what the sun is, and this is suggesting that the sun is not a star in the way that I've also been told. Giant thermonuclear reactor with a core, all this stuff, right? It's like
these fireballs and flames shooting all over the place, like this Eye of Sauron in the sky.
Yeah.
Which again, I mentioned earlier, people have literally looked at it with their camera, with filters, and seen that there's none of that. It's a perfect, beautiful sphere with a couple of little specks on it. It's just chilling there.
Yeah.
There's no fireballs and flames flying off of it.
Yeah. So it makes sense to me that the moon is not physically solid. We can't land on it. And that is actually probably what I think is the reason for the moon landing conspiracy, is to convince people that it is a physical object out in space. And because that perpetuates all kinds of other sort of like mind prison constructs, like the idea of, space travel and all these other things. And so It's the same thing, like people who are viewing stars with the P900 are saying the same thing. Like a star doesn't look, the stars just kind of look like little glowing frequency. They look like little waves of energy. Like, and people are able to get like really good looks at a lot of these, and the planets. This is also true of the planets, right? And then, yeah, it's fascinating. I'd love to get my hands on one of these cameras. We should get ourselves a P900, Ben, and hang out.
Absolutely, I would love that. I'm looking. I just pulled up my Nostra real quick here, my advanced search. Okay, here we go. I'm going to pull up what we actually see in the stars versus what we're told. Here it is. So this is what people, even with your naked eye, people have seen how stars just appear like these weird pulsating lights that literally change colors. So we're told that, oh, that's just atmospheric distortion or something weird like that. We're, again, just this explanation we're given, we just run with that our whole lives. How you're not actually seeing what you're seeing because of X reason. And to me, this is definitely worth thinking about. They're changing all these weird colors. What the deal? What's the deal with this, Scott? What I don't even know.
Your guess is as good as mine. I don't know.
So, according to all of the international space agencies around the world, this is what Sirius looks like. Just some animated picture. And this is what Sirius actually looks like. That's a pretty big difference, in my opinion. In fact, such a big difference that we could be being lied to. Because this is what NASA says Venus looks like. This is what Venus actually looks like. So, is Venus even a planet?
We've all seen the space documentaries of the giant, combusting balls of gas and fire in the empty void of outer space. But have any of you actually ever seen a real star up close? It makes you wonder why a lot of telescopes have been manipulated throughout the years to show you an image that's not actually there. Because if you take a high-powered camera such as the P900 or the P1000 by Nikon, you will see that these stars are not what we've been told. It looks a lot more like light and sound resonance. Do me a favor and Google cymatics on either YouTube or any platform, and you'll quickly see that the stars literally look like light, energy, oscillating in some sort of liquid substance above. Scientists managed to create a star in a jar by putting water in an empty vacuum and then passing a sound wave through the water. This causes the water to expand in the middle, creating an air bubble, and then the water collapses upon itself. And the intensity of this collapse is so powerful that it generates heat and light, creating an artificial star. Now, Nikola Tesla told us to think of the universe as energy, frequency, and vibration. Energy is light, frequency is sound, and vibration is the effect of the sound wave passing through physical material. The entire universe is light, sound, and vibration. Now, how are we able to create an artificial star? By putting a sound wave through a vat of water. Now, the Bible speaks of the waters above. Now, I know we say that space is an empty vacuum, but what if space is pressurized water? Because in the beginning was the Word. Now, even animals and life on Earth uses light and sound communication to communicate with each other. Because micro to macro, we are the stars. Man is the measure of the universe. Everything is connected in every single way that you could possibly imagine. This is one beautiful creation. Just look into the study of cymatics, and you will look up at the stars and think much differently about them.
Like there's all kinds of like weird layers around stuff where NASA has been caught. Like, you tell people that there are no photos of Earth, and like no one will like agree with you. Like, that's a very triggering thing, but like NASA admits themselves that there are no photos of Earth, which is like pretty bizarre thing. You know,
Weird.
you think that we
With
have
all
these
the trips they said they've done, all these trips to Mars they've done, and all
Never
these
took a photo.
Hubble space telescopes they have all over the place. They've never taken a single picture of Earth. And this was one of the mind-blowing ones to me too, is how literally every single one of those pictures in our textbooks and in the History Channel specials and in the introduction to the Universal Studios before every single movie, none of these are from real pictures. They're all CGI. They're all completely computer generated. So why would they do that?
Robert Hurt and Tim Pyle bring the universe to life.
What we're doing does have real science underlying it.
Robert is an astrophysicist turned artist. Tim, once a Hollywood animator, is now a planet illustrator. Together, they produce some of NASA's most popular images, from renderings of how planets light years away could look to actual photos of stars and galaxies captured by NASA's powerful telescope. It's a delicate blend of imagination and data. The artists meet with NASA scientists over many drafts to ensure a planet or galaxy's look lines up with the research, to make each one as accurate as possible.
I love the challenge. It's kind of like a puzzle to me, of trying to create something that looks really cool within the restrictions that were given by the scientists.
It can take days, even weeks, to produce just a single image. The dazzling final results, enough to keep us all dreaming of the final frontier for years to come.
2002, Blue Marble 2.0. NASA's Rob Simon made this. And it had wide appeal too. For example, it ended up as the default background on the iPhone.
I didn't even know until I bought an iPhone and turned it on and kind of did a little happy dance.
Simmons' job is...
It's primarily taking data and making pictures out of it.
That's what this is. A composite of data sets from several different instruments translated into a picture.
To us, the really cool thing was the data set. Up until that point, there was no realistic color map of the globe anywhere.
So the land layer here comes from
the moderate resolution imaging spectroradiometer aboard Terra.
And the tricky part here was the weather.
So we actually had to take clouds out.
They stashed the clouds for later, went onto the ocean. That came from an instrument that measures phytoplankton in the sea.
Where it was low, I colored it dark blue because they're low mostly in mid-oceans. And then where it's a little bit higher, it was like a little bit brighter green.
Then add the clouds back in.
There's a small problem with it because there's a very slight gap in between each orbit.
So some of those are painted on.
It is photoshopped, but it has to be.
Then
there was another layer to sort of simulate the atmosphere.
And then there's this little bright spot.
It's called the specular highlight. So it's the reflection of sunlight off of water.
Those are the pieces, but you can't just slap them all together.
It just didn't look realistic. It looks kind of flat, or the clouds are sort of too see-through. So I just hit Command Z a lot.
There's artistry to creating the world.
What I imagine it to be. Unfortunately, I'm not an astronaut. I've never been to space. But I've looked at these images over and over again, trying to sort of get the essence of it. It is photoshopped, but it has to be.
It is photoshopped, but it has to be.
I was watching a documentary on space and how our solar system was formed, and there's one thing I noticed about every piece of imagery that was being shown to me about our solar system. Now, I'm not going to say what that one thing is, that one similarity between all of these videos is, but I want to just hint it at you that this is a documentary, and it's supposed to be documenting what's actually happening in our natural world right in front of us. Now, isn't it just a little bit odd how all of these videos seem to be almost misrepresenting reality in a way? Because if I took my camera and I tried to record any of these said events, would I be able to? That's really odd, how this one striking similarity between all of these videos seems to almost make them seem invalid. But of course I watched the documentary. on how Mercury was striking into asteroids and it got too close to the sun, so it's uninhabitable, and all this stuff. And how Jupiter is this massive gas giant, and asteroids just crash into it all the time. Yeah. Okay.
It is photoshopped, but it's has to be.
And the scaling is different in all of them, right? So in one picture, Florida might be 10% of the globe, and in another picture, it's 40%. Same curvature, you know, saying like this just is impossible. If they were photos, that would be totally impossible. They should be obviously 100% consistent, and they're not. That's an easy one. Like there's all kinds of pictures, air quotes, of the Middle East from space, and the proportions are different in all of them. So yeah, I think it's
Here's
problematic.
This picture I found earlier. So I was talking about the sun earlier. This is what we're told. This crazy fireball of death.
Yeah, I have Sauron.
Here is a literal picture people have taken with the Nikon P1000 with filters. There's a difference there.
Wild.
And there's videos of that too for people that want to see the video. And I've got all these videos up on my Nostr for people. Just go to the advanced search and just search NASA or CGI. I've been putting a bunch of them up there, but it just makes you ask questions. This is what we're here for, Scott. We're here to ask questions.
That's right.
What is really the deal here? Because if there's anything we've learned listening to this podcast, my friends, there are now 130 episodes in, it's that the government and its agency arms, certainly NASA is one of them, they tell way more lies than truths.
Yeah.
So why are we believing these things that require us, like you, I think, said perfectly, it requires you to stretch your imagination beyond what really common sense tells you.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good place for people to start.
Yeah, you know, and so maybe to put a bow on this, I think another thing that has interested in me about this for some time is that these objects interact with each other in a way that another coincidence is that it forms a perfect clock. And Bitcoiners love Prague, and they're all in Prague taking photos with the astronomical clock, which we think is 600 years old, but it might be, who knows how old that thing is. And it's amazing to me how they were measuring time using the heavens, and the sun measures days, and 13 full lunar cycles makes basically one full rotation of the stars. Like, that's an amazing coincidence if we're just, again, thinking about these coincidences. And this is one of the things I talk about in my book very briefly, but the Gregorian calendar of 12 months just makes absolutely no sense and is entirely, in my opinion, like a control mechanism designed to prevent us from just reconciling observable reality with how we're told to think about the way things work. And so go down the Gregorian calendar rabbit hole. It's a big one. I think that if we had 28 lunar cycles in a calendar year, things would make a lot more sense. Like every month starts on a Monday. I'm just looking at this. Yeah, this clock is so cool.
For listeners, I just pulled up I am so glad that I knew what the deal was with the Prague Astronomical clock, because as we were mentioning before, our mutual buddy here, Holistic Health Nut, who have an episode with him coming out soon too, he posts a bunch of videos about this. So when I was in Prague, I was like, hell yeah, I gotta go check this thing out. And so here I am just chilling, watching this thing in this crowd of hundreds of people, just with their phone taking a video of this thing at the turn of the hour, just ringing away and doing its thing. And it's a very bizarre feeling watching this, knowing that nobody in that crowd knows what they're actually looking at. This is literally it's showing that flat Earth clock that you talked about, and it's just such a bizarre thing to look into. And I'll tack on some videos underneath this video that really walk through that on Cameron's channel, because I think he does a great job really breaking down what people are actually looking at on that clock right there.
Yeah, I mean, indisputably, the moon is an incredible timekeeper, right? It's like a floating hourglass. So how much of the moon is illuminated for us tells us what part of the month we're in. Like, that's insane. And going back to the very start of this conversation, the idea of installing science as God is really, I think, taking people, drifting us further from how incredibly, if it's all a coincidence, even still, it's amazing how all these different pieces fit together and seem to make sense in a hyper intelligent way. I don't know if that's just maybe that's all we can ever know. I don't know.
Yeah, there's a lot of weirdness out there. That's all I know, just from learning about all this, and we've barely even scratched the surface here.
Yeah,
there's so
I've seen people go a lot further. There are some very, very, I'll say, niche ideas about what's really happening with these things. Maybe that's part 2.
Yeah. Are there any other things that you wanted to touch on here while we're on that topic, or what do you think?
I don't know. I think we might have covered everything that a beginner's guide to questioning the moon rock.
we both know there's some things that we'll get at later, maybe in a future episode once certain steps are taken. But I think it's good to just give people a inspiration to just start thinking about these things and just start just looking up more. I've been encouraging people to look up more since the geoengineering episode long ago, and just look at the sky more and see what you see and believe your eyes.
I'm really interested in your observation that the spraying may be heavier around full moons, and I'm going to pay attention to that, because where I live, they are absolutely spraying the shit out of us.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's funny. I saw on the other day a tweet from the spraying thing has transitioned in the common perception from "you're insane, it's not happening" to "of course we need to manipulate the weather."
Yeah.
and I've seen, like, smart people, Bitcoiners, people who I think should be questioning stuff, say stuff like that, where it's like, hey, obviously we are trying to prevent climate change. And which I actually don't think spraying has anything to do with that. But maybe that's another conversation too. But
Interesting. It's my personal view is that the geoengineering spraying is the main driver of the destruction of the environment. And they're just doing that so they can say, oh, climate change is killing us, give us more taxes and control. And that's a dark one, man. Because when you look around and just visualize things, I can give you an example just from the last few days. So I'm in Poland right now. The first probably 4 or 5 days I was here, it was gorgeous, beautiful blue sky, beautiful out. I was out sunbathing every day. And then I think this was 2 days ago, super bad chemtrail day. The whole sky just covered with it, just hazed out, white out. Sun becomes this gross grow light, like you feel like you're just getting cooked under it.
Yeah.
And the very next day, dumping rain all day. And as I was walking to this co-working place I'm sitting in right now to record this, I saw 3 different bumblebees just on the ground, kind of like walking around, looking confused. And this is one of those things that I noticed. It's just that the bugs are very sensitive to this stuff.
Oh, man. I remember we used to do these big treks when I was a kid driving across Canada. And there's a meme about this now, but it's a meme because it's totally true. Our windshield used to be just covered in bugs. Covered. And now I could drive from here to Vancouver 4 hours through wilderness, and I'll have the odd bug on my windshield. But we had one of those station wagons with the wood paneling on the sides, and the grill of that thing, after a long, we would just drive to my grandma's place for an hour, and it would be just covered in bugs. Like, so yeah, I think that there's a lot of very concerning things going on. The least of all is, again, it's obviously one of these things that is being lied about and has been for a really long time, which makes me wonder what is really going on. And this is why I personally believe that the weather manipulation narrative is a smokescreen for what the real intended purpose is.
Yeah, it's true, and that's definitely possible. And how do I touch on this one gently? I've also noticed it's very hard to see these really, really far distances when there's a haze set up there. And there are more and more people on these weirdos on the internet. They're trying to like find these really long distance points they can see and measure, and they're figuring out how much Earth curvatures are supposed to be there. And it's getting harder because there's haze everywhere, so you can't see.
Yeah.
Could that possibly be a reason why they also want everything to be hazed out? I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know if we can even touch on this one now because it's a huge one, but I've seen some people discuss the idea that cloud formations interact. So like the atmosphere, the etheric energy, in the same way that the moon has an effect on our consciousness, like we were talking about earlier, that the atmosphere and the electromagnetic energy that is everywhere does as well. And that disrupting the natural formation of clouds could actually also be causing some sort of effect on human collective consciousness.
I mean, I think all of these things just around us, this is one of the things that I've really been discovering, and more people are that all of these things around us, the sun, the moon, the weather, the stars, all of these things have a profound impact on us as living beings on this earth and the other wildlife around us. We can see it. These animals, people like posting the video of the dogs or the cats indoors. They're just following the sun rays as it moves through the house, and they're just always trying to be inside it. And here us humans we're like scared of the sun now, rubbing chemical cream on us to protect us from the sun, and wearing sunglasses to stop us from the sun, and doing these crazy things. And you're thinking about, how did we get to this point?
Yeah, we've been convinced that the sun is dangerous to us. And then you see like videos on, I was watching one yesterday, and I have no idea if this is true or not, but it was showing some mass migration of cats happening in Miami, where like cats are like wandering all the way from Louisiana to Miami. And there's this massive migration of cats happening. Yeah.
That's crazy. I never heard about that.
Yeah. So the video was saying scientists can't explain it. They're wondering if some kind of atmospheric phenomenon or something magnetic. They can't get the cats to leave. More keep showing up. And there's like videos of animals like sheep starting to walk in giant circles, and all of these, just weird behaviors. And so I think that they're, maybe sensitive to different frequencies. Animals can see things we can't see. They have different spectrum. What is it? Pigeons have a fourth set of cones in their eyes. They can see, like, what is that? What is that color? Like what?
There are whole dimensions of things around us that we can't even comprehend because our eyes only see a very small sliver of reality.
Yeah.
That's one of the interesting things I've also learned is that we are only barely seeing what's out there with our own eyes.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's like, this is that Plato's cave thing too, right? Is part of the lie, I think, is we've been convinced what we see is what it is. And then we get told what it is. And then we smush those two things together and create an accepted worldview. And who knows, man? Not me.
Yeah. And I think this is as good a time as any to transition, because while we're on the subject of these ways that people are being dumbed down and suppressed, another one of the completely tangential topics that you reach out to me about is porn. I think this is interesting. There's no way we can have an easy transition.
Yeah.
But I figured while we're on here talking, we should talk about this, because I think that this is an underrated human suppression device that really lowers consciousness, especially for men. And it does tie into all this, because this is all part of this huge operation to get people out of their highest consciousness self.
Yeah.
And confused and brain fogged and lower their hormonal balance. So how would you approach this as relevant to all of these things as we're trying to figure out what reality is in the universe right now?
Yeah, it's a big topic. It's not a subject I've done on a pod or anything like that before. I don't have a problem admitting I've watched my own fair share of porn, and I quit, and I'm proud of that. And I just kind of think that we've been noodled into this weird scenario where there's a mass addiction to pornography, and as a result of that mass addiction, there's a general urge for people to say that it's okay, like porn is not harmful, when there actually are real, genuine studies of the effect of porn consumption on the brain. So it's not harmless. It does do something to people who consume it physiologically, but it does also change the way we relate with each other and interact in society. And all these closet porn addicted men out there are really, I think it's an epidemic. And to zoom out a little bit, I think it is absolutely 100% an intentional control mechanism that is being perpetrated by the state, because it does keep people weak and stupid, and it prevents...
And impotent, by the way. This literally is ruining men's entire arousal mechanism.
Yeah.
Like erectile dysfunction is skyrocketing for young guys.
Yeah.
And it's largely because they're being turned on by pixels on a screen. So when they come in contact with a real woman, their brain doesn't really know what to do.
Yeah.
And there are these huge communities like the r/nofap on Reddit, which is figuring this out. And I really hope that more guys figure that out, because I feel like most of the people listening out there will either guys or women who have been with guys who've seen this happening, and they're confused. What's going on? I'm young and healthy. Like, how come I can't get it up?
Yeah.
A lot of the time, porn is the problem.
Yeah. Yeah. And people really, I think, will go to, as much as people want to believe we landed on the moon, they will say, like, a little porn that won't hurt me. It's just a little bit. And I kind of grew up in this age of, it was so inaccessible when I was a kid that there was a reason why jokes about the Sears catalog were a thing. And so I've lived through the era of the mass proliferation and the accessibility of porn, universal accessibility of porn. And they always say, if something's free, you're the product, right? And this is why all of these porn sites are free, because they're consuming people's time and attention. And then all these fucking ridiculous predatory, like OnlyFans, it's just, I could talk about this for hours. I just think, and then these
Don't
women
you dare mention who owns all these companies, because there are no anti-Semites allowed.
Yeah. I mean, like, the big one, Pornhub, is a Canadian company. MindGeek is based in Montreal. And like, it's just a disgusting organization, right? And they're perpetuating human trafficking, underage, child abuse, and like, people, by participating in that system, whether they're consuming that particular content or not, are enabling a market for those things. And they're all sort of like tacit observers and participants in that system. And so you're like co-conspirators almost, whether you want to think about it that way or not. And so the biggest thing, I mean, not the biggest thing, but like, undeniably, it robs men of their, ability and genuine desire to go out and do things in the real world. Like porn and video games are the same, right? They substitute fantasy and imaginary achievements with real ones, which is what the mechanism that makes people weak and disempowered, which is exactly the thing that, a control mechanism that is designed to further extend its control to infinity, exactly what it would want, right? So I think it's like, we're at a very disturbing place in the time of porn in society, where we're celebrating women who can have sex with like 1,000 men in a day. I mean, it's disgusting, right? Like men will line up to participate in this thing and they wear masks because they're so ashamed of what they're doing that they don't anyone want them to know that they're doing it. And just think about that, right? This is kind of where we've arrived. And then other people would not personally do it, but they might watch it or they might think it's funny and share it with their buddies. And I think that these are all peak fiat problems. I hope that what we're seeing is the end of the sort of broader disillusionment and hopelessness that comes from not understanding that our financial system has been intentionally designed to steal from all of us and disempower us all through theft. And I watched this really great interview with George Gammon and a while back. George was talking about how he lives in St. Bart's. George is like a good-looking guy, 50-something, right? I don't know how. He's got a yacht. So George in this interview was talking about how his random night out at a bar in St. Bart's, and he's talking to these 3 20-something girls from Minnesota, whatever, Ohio. And his point was, and so those girls were down there, Instagram famous, and their mission was to get on a yacht. And his point was like, 30 years ago, those girls would have been stoked to go out on a Friday night date with the guy who had just graduated university and was starting his career as a phys ed teacher. And now that guy doesn't even earn enough money to move out of his parents' basement and has no hope of getting a woman. And at the same time, that woman who he might have had is now in St. Bart's trying to meet George Gammon. And one of the negative secondary effects is like, this thing now exists and it's siphoning the productivity, sexual productivity, and the hope of people who should be thinking about finding somebody to engage in a meaningful relationship with and hopefully like procreate. And like, that's what we're here to do, man, is like further the human race. And yeah, it's deeply disturbing.
Stop allowing others to take your creative energy. Stop watching and allowing that to steal your sexual and creative energy. You know what? Let me touch on that, because a lot of people think, oh, it's not that bad, it's whatever, you can just watch it every now and then. No. So if you're not getting laid in life, it's an indicator that you're not doing the right thing. So let's say you're like, oh, I had a long day at the warehouse, I think I'm just gonna smoke a little bit of weed and watch some to relieve the stress. Well, you know what that does? It puts a nice little warm blanket over your problems. Makes it feel okay. The weed, and then porn. So, you getting a girl and being able to lay with a woman is an indicator from the universe that you're doing something right, that you're on the right path. So if you watch some and then jack off and get your nut off, you broke the system. You broke the whole reward system. So now you're like, I'm satisfied, I'm getting laid. Even though you know deep down you're not actually getting anything. Your body is saying, hey, I just got laid. That means I'm doing something with my life. Working at a warehouse and smoking on my off time is doing something with my life.
And I hope these are among the things that I hope Bitcoin can fix, man, because I believe that people should be inherently wired for the belief in a brighter tomorrow. And that's something that I do personally think that Bitcoin can fix. And it's part of the reason why I like trying to talk about it and help other people understand why. Because if they haven't understood the base problem, then all of these other things can be really difficult to try to like organize into like, why does this matter?
Yeah, 100%. And one of the things that I just took a note of while you were talking about that is that there are many parallels through all these different seemingly unrelated topics. Like, how the heck are we going from the moon to porn here? But to me, we see all these examples of polarity in our realm. The moon and the sun are a great example. We have these two luminous bodies that one gives us warmth, and as I found, many other people are finding, the other one gives us cold. So they are the yin and yang symbol in real life. I think that's where that came from. That's kind of odd, huh? And we also have the masculine feminine dynamic, which is another one of these polarities that is being stolen from people's minds. We're being told that masculinity is toxic and women are being taught to be boss babes, super masculine, independent. And all these different forces are trying to basically skew these natural polarities. So how do you see that? Would you agree with me that you see this idea of polarity as this thing that has so many parallels throughout just everything?
Yeah,
And
I mean,
our enemies are trying to drive a wedge into that, and that's what's causing a lot of the damage we see today. Would you agree?
Totally, man. I firmly believe in in universal law and ancient truths. And you mentioned the yin yang, and this is an underlying premise in the book Tao Bitcoin. I think that there are just certain kinds of ancient esoteric wisdom that we intuited over a very long period and refined and understood. And yin yang is one of those concepts, and it's a universal truth. And so the bigger thing, I think this is what we're talking about, and it's this idea that there's a system in place that makes it difficult for us to discern what's going on, and understanding something like polarity, as an example, is hard when you're surrounded by sort of this intellectual fog. That one thing it does do, whether that's what it's trying to do or not, is make it hard to make sense of things.
Yeah, and you mentioned this earlier, but I didn't clearly say it, but I definitely have also watched my fair share of porn, which it just has this way of sinking its hooks into the male brain in such a way where we are very visual creatures, us men. And I don't know about you, but I had no clue of how damaging it was when I started doing it. We're not taught these things. Like you said, we're sort of taught, a little bit won't hurt you. It's fine, whatever. Everybody does it. Everybody does it. But as soon as people out there start to I think the first step is just really spreading the education that, yes, this thing is very damaging. And it's stealing away your energy and your drive. I think that's a big one, is that so many guys are realizing, myself included, that when you cut that shit out, and I would say cut out all jerking off as well, without the porn,
100%.
for long periods of time, you gain this different aura, this different energy, and this drive to go build shit and succeed and create and do all these things that men should be doing.
Yeah.
And I think that is, like you said, clearly the reason why you can see the incentive there for the powers that be that don't want guys really getting a really clear mind, seeing what's going on here, how we're getting screwed in all these different ways, because this is just another way to keep
it might be the most effective way
that they want us in.
Yeah. And I think too, it's important for guys to just not be embarrassed about it and just have the conversation. Most people have done it, so take ownership. And this is where I think, like you said, the same experience. Getting it out of your life nobody regrets that. Like it's a choice. The sooner people make that choice, it's like saving in hard money. This is something that every man should do.
Yeah, and we are talking a lot about men here, but I'm sure, I know there are women out there
totally.
that are into
I'm
it
just
too.
not a woman, so
Yeah, it's there is no perfect black and white here. I definitely know there are women out there that probably struggle with it as well, who have a little bit more of that visual acuity. But for everyone, it's bad to be turned on by a screen on a phone or a computer. Yeah. It is not natural.
Yeah.
Like the North Star we need to be following right now is to do more things that are natural and bring us closer to our source. And anytime you're waking off to a computer screen, watching other people have sex, think about how weird that is.
Yeah, and it's about to get way weirder and way more challenging, because it'll be interactive videos that are being streamed in real time. It'll be robots. The younger men today are about to walk into a gauntlet unlike anything we had to face. And I feel really bad for what's coming. And it's bleak.
I mean, I'm a little more optimistic than you. I think that there is unfortunately going to be a percentage of people who are unfortunately, and this is largely just due to parenting and where people are born into. So it's largely luck of the draw. There are sadly a lot of weak family units right now because that's one of the things that's being attacked more than any. As part of that dynamic conversation we're talking about of the worst enemy of the powers that be is a strong, stable family that's sovereign from their control and is raising healthy kids who are awake to the propaganda. So they've done a lot of damage to the family unit, and there are a lot of single mother, single father, just disjointed families out there where these kids are more vulnerable to falling into these traps. But that said, while there's sadly going to be a lot of those people, we can hope and pray that they just stumble across content on the internet that helps show them the way. This is why I think we should talk about this and why I brought it up. There are also a lot of kids that are going to be born into these really dialed in households as well, where people are starting to, I mean, there's an awakening going on all around us. We can tell that for sure. There is this really crazy divergence.
Yeah.
And that's a topic that I brought up a couple times on the podcast. I think that's going to continue to be a huge theme in the world, how we are going to see such a drastic splitting of the human race, of those who are just eating the goy slop seed oils. They are watching the porn from 9 years old. They're just falling into all the traps because they aren't born into a stable environment, and they are susceptible to that at a young age. And there's going to be the super based ultra chads who are stacking Bitcoin and on Nostr before any of the other social medias, and they're doing everything right. So we're going to see just this crazy splitting from just two different species are going to come out of this essentially. And
yeah, I think I've seen this, like, it's no accident that the term Great Reset emerged sort of simultaneous to the term Great Awakening. And what is a Great Reset, really? It's like factory reset. It's the people who are choosing to go back into the matrix, the ciphers. I'll take the stake, right? And yeah. Red pill, blue pill.
And I think that the only silver lining to that scenario I just outlined is that natural selection will happen, and those people who are on the unfortunate side of the dynamic will be either unable or less able to procreate. So that isn't going to be the long-term direction. As long as those intransigent minority of people who really have woken up and are determined to rebuild a strong family unit and make healthy decisions and self-sovereign decisions, those are going to be the ones that we see this in Bitcoin. All the Bitcoiners this is one of the biggest Bitcoin stereotypes, is that they eat tons of steak, they're in the sun all the day, and they're making tons of babies. So we just need to keep that up.
Yeah.
And I'm optimistic overall. There's a lot of weird things going on, but I just feel like there are a lot of really great things being built. These freedom technologies are coming out. They're going to help people, help those who want to build a better future. It arms them to. It allows them to. It gives them the ability to. And I think that there's never been a time where, well, maybe I shouldn't historically speak here, but I really believe that this is a time where there are enough tools for those who are carrying the light to really blow this thing up in a big way. We don't need the majority of people to do it. We just need a really tough, determined, small minority able to push that forward.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's an exciting time to be alive. I fully believe that. And I think that, to your point, the tools exist. And this is where it's up to people to imagine the world that they want to live in and then create that world collectively as a result of holding that vision.
Yep. Scott, I think that at some point we do have to end this episode so we can start bringing it home here. We have covered moon landing is fake. Everything about it's a lie. It's producing its own light. It's cold. It's plasma. The sun is really close. The sun and the moon are the same size, which I'm convinced of. And porn is bad. We're throwing the shotgun at people today, and I think that sometimes that's a fun episode to have. So
Yeah.
I think we could kind of wrap things up here. Is there anything else that you thought we could cover, or does this sound good?
No, this is just like we drew it up, Ben. It went exactly according to plan, man. It's been a pleasure to come back, and hope we do it again sometime.
We definitely will. I think that you're one of my favorite people to just riff on everything and all the weirdness on. And I know that we're going to do some in the future. I already have some ideas. I think you do too, for things that we have sort of tiptoed around in this one, but will not forever, because the truth must be set free.
Count me in, my friend. Yeah.
Timing is of the essence. So we're going to be careful of the timing on everything, but we're awakening people out there. This is our job. It's
important.
Everyone who's open-minded and going through these weird rabbit holes we need to do our best in spreading the love and spreading the awareness. And as we're going through our own journeys, we don't know what the fuck we're talking about sometimes, but hey, we're trying.
That's like a critical thinking support group.
Exactly. Live recorded maniacal brainstorming discussions. I think that no matter how many things people think we're crazy and wrong about, which I'm sure a lot of people listening to this will think we're crazy and wrong, that's totally cool with me. I think they would just like throwing these ideas out into the ether for people to just think about themselves. And this is something that I will always say, and I'm sure you do too, is that people just should use your own first principles mind. Think about the things we're throwing out there. You don't have to believe them. You can think we're crazy, but just start thinking about it more. And go down all these rabbit holes yourself. This is a perfect episode where I'm going to put a bunch of links in the description for people to go search around some things that helped me go through these rabbit holes. And that's actually a good last question for you. What would be the resources you would point people toward whose heads are spinning and you would recommend for them to learn more? It could be books, documentaries, people to follow, any of that stuff.
Yeah, tough question. I don't know if I even have a good one. Like, most of the stuff on this subject is a little bit more like last time you asked me that, I was talking about my lunch break and a source that I really could send people to. I don't think I have any of this case. It's more like the moon thing came on my field of view because of all of there's just so many people sharing the absurdities of the moon landing story. And that's really where it started for me. So for anybody who's interested, that stuff is actually really easy to find. And if you were watching this and triggered, or you want to debate or any of this stuff, just go have a look and you will find a lot.
Mm-hmm. And one that I mentioned earlier was just Candace Owens having Bert Sibrel on there. That was one that helped me a lot, so I'll throw that in there. And it is interesting. It's not even really that censored anymore because there's so much of it out there.
Totally.
This is one of the most talked about conspiracy theories ever. They've kind of given up on trying to bottle it up.
Yeah, I will point people to Owen Benjamin, who I know some people find him a little bit controversial. Owen's moon stuff is really on point, in my opinion.
Yeah, and he presents it in a very funny way. He's a comedian, so it's a very entertaining guy to listen to.
Yeah, and he's smart. He's a really smart guy.
Yeah, like most comedians are. I think comedians are usually very sharp.
Yeah,
and so I'll pack the show notes with things for people to go watch and come to their own conclusions. And we'll be in touch for round 3, Scott. I'm already looking forward to it.
Thanks, man. Me too, man. Say no to porn.
Yeah, peace.
ODD TV.
So, on January 3rd, 2018, there was a major malfunction on what's called the International Space Station. In a video on NASA's YouTube channel called Space Station Crew Members Discuss Life in Space with the Media, the 3 astronauts, all disappear simultaneously while the background layer of the ISS remains intact.
Thank you very much again. Thank you for your time. Have a good flight and many more exciting experiments on the orbit. Thanks a lot.
Station, this is Houston ACR. That concludes the event.
When you look at this thing, this, and the actors, They are the only things that mess up. Watch closely. This is a big deal because it means without any doubt whatsoever that there was live editing and video manipulation. Not only would the background get scrambled as well, but these guys wouldn't all disappear at the same time. So check that one out on NASA's channel. I'll leave a link in the description. There are a lot of us that have been showing this stuff for years, and people are waking up to the deception, while some refuse to acknowledge it. In fact, many people hold the idea of outer space and NASA very near and dear to their hearts. So much so that when they are shown this evidence, their ego won't allow them to accept that space is a hoax. Years of psychological programming through various media doesn't help either. But whether we like it or not, NASA and all the other space agencies are lying to the world. They're lying to you. They're lying to your kids. We've caught NASA too many times to count at this point. We catch them glitching, There's this one video where the actor is going around a corner and he is faded out before making it completely out of the viewer's sight. Let's not forget space bubbles.
Dave Williams about to move out of the Quest airlock. Those particles that you see emanating from the airlock is said by the EVA officer Paul Baim in Mission Control to be particles of water from the crew's sublimators on their spacesuits.
So many times during spacewalks outside the International Space Station, we can see air bubbles rising up. Can you touch on how there are air bubbles in space?
Can you be more specific? Air bubbles?
So yeah, like a lot of times during the footage, the NASA footage, you can see bubbles coming up out of the helmets or kind of from underneath you. How do you explain bubbles in space?
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what you're talking about.
Oh, and it just happens that actors train in an underwater tank. NASA tells us that the Earth is photoshopped because it has to be.
It is photoshopped, but it's has to be.
Then
there was another layer to sort of simulate the atmosphere.
And then there's this little bright spot.
It's called the specular highlight. So it's the reflection of sunlight off of water.
Those are the pieces, but you can't just slap them all together.
It just didn't look realistic. It looks kind of flat, or the clouds are sort of too see-through. So I just hit Command Z a lot.
There's artistry to creating the world.
What I imagine it to be. Unfortunately, I'm not an astronaut. I've never been to space.
Some NASA actors say that you can totally see stars when you're in space.
Whilst in space, have you ever looked away from Earth into the black void?
Yeah.
All
because
the
you
time.
can see. Because you can see the stars.
Oh yeah.
You know, and pretty much all the time you can see the stars.
Yeah. It's not
which
a
is
black
cool
void.
thing.
I mean, it's black, but there's all kinds of little polka dots.
There's all the stars there, and the cool thing is about it, you can see it during the day.
Yeah, you can, and there's more than stars. You can see planets. You can see moons.
You see the gas. Magellan clouds of the Milky
you
Way
see
galaxy.
the Magellanic clouds.
Magellanic. See, I just wanted the Magellan
there's a large
clouds.
one
I didn't
and a
want to
small one, right?
Yeah.
And then you can see the zodiacal light.
Whoa.
But the NASA actors from 1969 say that you can't see the stars in space.
We were never able to see stars from the lunar surface or on the daylight side of the moon by eye without looking through the optics. I don't recall during the period of time that we were photographing the solar corona what stars we could see.
I don't remember seeing any. You can see the stars.
Oh yeah.
You know, and pretty much all the time you can see the stars.
I don't remember seeing any.
NASA says that we can't leave low Earth orbit.
Right now, we only can fly in Earth orbit. That's the farthest that we can go.
The kinds of technologies that we're testing out on Space Station are definitely helping us with our goals of going beyond low Earth orbit.
Early in the next decade, the set of crewed flights will test and prove the systems required for exploration beyond low Earth orbit.
And this is really the beginning, I think, of human beings leaving low Earth orbit.
One thing I really want your generation to embrace is that the Earth is a closed system. We cannot leave the Earth.
One thing I really want your generation to embrace is that the Earth is a closed system. We cannot leave the Earth.
NASA tells us that they lost the 1960s technology that took us to the moon.
I'd go to the moon in a nanosecond. The problem is we don't have the technology to do that anymore. We used to, but we destroyed that technology, and it's a painful process to build it back again.
The ultimate destination is Mars. So if you gave me all the money in the federal budget today, I could not get a human to Mars.
I think that what you're doing is taking a shot in the dark. You have no way of knowing if any commercial entity will ever be able to put a man in orbit, no matter how much money you throw at them. What you're doing is you're taking NASA's manned space program and making it a faith-based initiative. I yield the rest of my time.
NASA also says that they lost the telemetry data for the moon missions.
I haven't seen anything that indicates the telemetry data is even in existence, and as I said, even if we had it, we don't have the machines to play it back.
Unfortunately, I'm afraid I can't really give you much of a clue as to where this data ended up and whether it still exists or not.
Speaking of fabricated moon missions, we as humanity have been being systematically brainwashed to accept the moon landing when they finally did fake it. For instance, in 1902, the very first sci-fi movie ever made came out. It was called A Trip to the Moon. The guy who made this, George Méliès, made all sorts of similar short movies around the same time. The Astronomer's Dream, Impossible Voyage, Courtship of the Sun and Moon, Conquest of the Pole, the North Pole, that is. Anyway, more pre-moon landing movies that conditioned us mentally were Destination Moon from 1950, (1955) Conquest of Space, 1958 From the Earth to the Moon. That's the same year NASA was established. 1960 12 to the Moon. Then, in 1962, JFK gave his famous "We choose to go to the moon" speech.
We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things.
Followed by more mental conditioning in First Men in the Moon, 1964. And Jules Verne's Rocket to the Moon in 1967. In 1969, NASA goes to the moon for the first time, where President Nixon talked to them on the phone with no problem.
Hello, Neil and Buzz. I'm talking to you by telephone from the Oval Room at the White House. And this certainly has to be the most historic telephone call ever made from the White House. I just can't tell you how proud we all are of what you have done. For every American, this has to be the proudest day of our lives.
Only there is a problem. Nixon would not have been able to talk to them because the moon is supposedly 238,000 miles away. From then on, most of the world believes that NASA really goes to a place called outer space, and anyone that disagrees is an ignorant conspiracy nut lacking in education. It's not all their fault, though. The propaganda is rampant. In 1981, MTV launches and does their first broadcast with the use of NASA imagery.
7, 6, 5, 4. We've gone for main engine start. We have main engine start.
Ladies and gentlemen, rock and roll.
MTV even uses an astronaut on the moon as the logo for movies. And they give out the astronaut statue for Best Music Video Award. This is because MTV is ran by Freemasons. They even operate out of a Freemasonic temple. You see, NASA is also a Masonic entity. Most, if not all, NASA astronauts belong to a lodge, like our buddy Buzz Aldrin here. Freemasons are just drudges in the grand scheme of things. They do a lot of grunt work for the Grand Deception and the New World Order. Freemasonry is a Jewish establishment whose history, grades, official appointments, passwords, and explanations are Jewish from beginning to end. Isaac Wise. Also, I'm not saying that all Freemasons are bad or in on any conspiracy. There are certain lodges and certain individuals and families that are privy to the teachings of the mystery schools because of their social status. It's not for your average Freemason that joined the local lodge down the street. Anyway, back to Buzz Aldrin. This guy has lived his whole life being a puppet for a more sinister power. He is still 100% under oath to obey today. Here he is at some fashion show with Bill Nye. Looking good, Buzz, looking good. Speaking of Bill Nye, this guy was an actor on a sketch comedy show called Almost Live before being picked up by Disney in 1993. We all love Disney, right? Well, Disney, with the 666 in his logo, has a special club at Disneyland called Club 33. And if that wasn't enough, Walt Disney helped found NASA along with Werner von Braun, L. Ron Hubbard, and Jack Parsons.
Here to introduce you to this new series is Walt Disney.
In our modern world, everywhere we look, we see the influence science has upon our daily lives. Discoveries that were miracles a few short years ago are accepted as commonplace today. Many of the things that seem impossible now will become realities tomorrow.
To this day, our minds are under attack constantly by these parasites. We are submerged in a sea of programming and brainwashing to believe in things that have not and cannot be proven. They want us to believe that Earth is the result of an accidental Big Bang that gave way to life of single-celled organisms that eventually turned into fish, then amphibians, then monkeys, and then us. We are told that we live on a rock that spins as it flies through outer space, and at any moment, we can be destroyed by an asteroid or invaded by aliens. They say that one day the sun will die out and all of this is over. Well, gee, if that doesn't make you feel special, then I don't know what will. Question everything, because everything you think you know is wrong. Until next time, everyone.